the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very, very good morning to you. It's just coming up 3 minutes past 10. See, I can do a time check. I'm still thinking it's morning. It is still morning. But amazingly, and this is very exciting, it's now February. We finally got through January. Genuinely, it lasted about 8 months, January. It went on and on and on, but luckily we've kept the weather, so there we are. Anyway, a very happy February to you, a very happy Monday morning to you. Thank you very much for joining me, and whether you're listening on DAB Plus radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or on your connected device, it's great to have your company. Don't forget, if you miss anything from the show, you can go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show, hit subscribe, and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, of course, we're going to do the latest revelations from the latest release of the Epstein files, largely involving Lord Mandelson and, of course, the artist formerly known as Prince Andrew. Should both men be forced to testify before Congress? I'm not sure if legally they can, unless they actually travel to the States, which I imagine they're not going to be doing anytime soon. They have said they are guilty of no wrongdoing whatsoever, and who are we to question them? But, you know, one's lost all his titles, and one has lost, well, his third job in a row, and even had to resign his membership of the Labour Party because of what he has been accused of, or suggestions of, in his in the Epstein files. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Also going to be talking about Britain on track to become the biggest spender of benefits in the G7. So well done us. We're going to talk about asylum seekers being housed in council homes and the latest virtue signalling nonsense from celebs at the Grammys. F-ice, and no one is illegal in a land that's stolen. I mean, these people are absolute idiots, but we're going to have some fun having a go at them. Where is Ricky Gervais when you need him, is what I would say. Anyway, do get in touch. I want to hear from you on any and all of the topics we're talking about, but in particular, I would like to hear from you about the latest Epstein files. Now, I know a lot of people say, oh, for goodness sake, we're not learning anything new, for goodness sake. I mean, we already know, and let's face it, the most crucial facts there are a multi-billionaire financier, friend with everybody, politicians, every royals, goodness, got away for years in plain sight while he was trafficking and, let's use the word, raping 14, 15-year-old girls every single day. Some of them said they were raped, you know, daily, a number of times a day. This is what he did. And he clearly trafficked those girls to other very rich, powerful men. What we're trying to work out now is exactly who they are. Most interesting, I think, over the last few days is not what we got in the Epstein files, it's what we got in a court document filed by Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyers, suggesting that some 30 men had been given effectively immunity from any prosecution as at the time when she was prosecuted. Now, she should absolutely be behind bars for basically helping Jeffrey Epstein and procuring the young girls for him. She's as awful as, you know, as he is. But who are the men who've been basically given immunity? I want to know from that. But crucially, should Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, as he is now known, having lost his prince title, should he be forced to testify before Congress? And should, as Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, has suggested, should Lord Mandelson, our former man in Washington, should he also be forced to testify before Congress? If they say they've done nothing wrong, but they're both absolutely horrified by what it's turned out that Jeffrey Epstein was doing, which, of course, they knew nothing about when they were staying at his homes repeatedly, constantly messaging with him and calling him their best pal. If they knew nothing, if they saw nothing, if they did nothing, why on earth wouldn't they, if they, as they claim to do in statement after statement, desperately care about the women who were raped, abused, drugged, trafficked and goodness knows what else by Jeffrey Epstein and his acolytes? Why wouldn't you testify before Congress to give them any evidence you could? Why would you not talk to the FBI? Why would you not be helping? I wonder if there's an obvious answer to that. I'd love to know what you think. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate altogether now on a Monday morning. Text cost £1, standard network rate message. Delighted to say, joining me today, unusual on a Monday, but it's getting to be quite usual now, Conservative commentator Benedict Spence. Good morning.
Good morning. What am I doing here?
We're all a bit
Why have I
bemused.
been woken up for this?
Why have you been...
Peter
harsh.
Peter Mandelson's resigned from something he's caught up in a scandal. That's not a news story. Come on, that's a weekday. Like, honestly, really? This is what I'm dragged out of bed for.
I'm working out. It's 7 minutes past 10 o'clock now. Peter Mandelson will maybe have had his espresso, I don't know, his chai latte, whatever he has, his music.
A very nice machine.
Very, very fancy sourdough bread. I don't know, whatever he's had with avocado. I don't know what he has. I can tell you right now that Peter Mandelson has already told 4 lies, because Peter Mandelson tells 4 lies before breakfast every day. It's what he has lied and lied and lied about everything. 1997, this is how old I am. 1997, I was working on London Star and the Evening Standard, which those outside London, the Evening Standard was, the paper everyone in London read, and the London Star was basically a page of the gossip about the famous and the rich and the good, whatever, great and the good, not the good.
Interesting.
And I remember I was writing, it wasn't my story, but I wrote and edited the very first item, I think in June 1997, about Peter Mandelson, and questioning about, there's that wonderful way that journalists do, papers do when they can't legally say what they want to say, which is, how on earth does an MP, as he was then, on only £45,000 a year, manage to afford a basically 450 grand property in Notting Hill with no, I mean, you couldn't get a loan for that much at that time. You couldn't, that's not an option. How on earth is he afforded it? Well, he lied, and he lied to the editor of the Evening Standard and told him it was about his mum had left him money. Totally untrue. He lied to everybody about it. Turns out it was a loan from another member of the cabinet, Geoffrey Robertson. Both men were forced out. He was forced out again over money and relationships with two billionaire Indian brothers. Yeah. And then forced out of the US ambassador role. I mean, why each time? It's because he's lied.
It is. I mean, when you say he tells 4 lines before breakfast, to be fair, that's because he looks at himself in the mirror and goes, now, come on, Peter, you've done nothing wrong. You can come back from this. Everybody loves you. You've got many people rooting for you. Oh, is that the time? It's time for my espresso. Right there, those are the 4 lines. But it is just, it's comical, isn't it? Because everybody always goes on about how clever Peter Mandelson is. This is why he got the role as our man in Washington. Oh, he'll be excellent in the role. He knows how to get, everybody can wrap them all around their little finger. If only he was so clever to just not keep on getting embroiled in things that lead to the downfall of his career. Yeah. That said, he is clever enough to fool enough people to keep giving him more jobs.
Well, this is the thing. Again, I've posted, everyone keeps saying how clever he is. I mean, Trevor Phillips, the presenter on the Sky yesterday, they've been old friends for years, old Labour Party mates, worked together, in ITV together, they're just old mates. And basically, he's such a clever guy and his talents but his talents are now lost. They're lost to the country. I'll live with that. I mean, I'll live with that. I thought the appointment as US ambassador was a terrible idea in the first place. Everyone did. But again, this all comes back down to, the judgment of the Prime Minister. I mean, literally, you could go through newspaper cuttings and you would know you shouldn't hire this guy. If the security people didn't go, are you kidding me about this guy? This guy couldn't get a job as a postboy, so how on earth could he get a job as US ambassador? He was already untrustworthy. Some of the Epstein files stuff, again, he can deny it all. I don't know. The Epstein files published claim, he received $75,000 over a couple of years while he was business secretary. His boyfriend, now husband, Ronaldo, received a $10,000, we're told, loan. Well, he was earning big money. Why was his boyfriend needing loans? Mandelson apparently knew nothing about. He does not recall. He has no recollection of whether or not his best pal, as he repeatedly called Epstein, gave him £75,000 over a period of months. Just question to everybody. Have you ever, whether it was 20 years ago or last month, has anyone ever given you $75,000, about 50 grand, and you just didn't notice or forgot? And even now you're going, oh, did I get 75?
I am going to check my accounts just very quickly, just in case.
Absolutely checking my accounts.
If it's open season for US dodgy financiers to just be throwing it around. I thought it would be a Nigerian prince, but it turns out no. There are other avenues that can get slightly dodgy money for. Who knew?
It's risible. I mean, he thinks we're fools.
He does, of course he does. But I don't want to say they all do, but this is part of the sort of the culture of people like him, which is genuinely that he believes if he can just double down long enough, he can get away with it. The funny thing, of course, is it's sort of cut from the same sort of cultural cloth, if you like, as Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
But everybody goes in two-footed on Boris Johnson, including many people who it turns out are friends of Peter Mandelson. But all of this is sort of taken as, oh, Peter, what have you done this time? Well, how unfortunate. But just look, lay low for a little bit and you'll be able to come back. Whereas when it's Boris Johnson, it's charlatan, he's this, he's that, he's appalling, he's denigrating democracy and all this. When it's this guy, it's kind of like, oh, well,
I think
what
they're both appalling, genuinely. And there's that thing, I really think it's important. I felt so strongly about the MP's expenses scandal. And by the way, so did the general public about people upholding standards. I don't want to live in Putin's Russia or Berlusconi's Italy.
Oh, I'd love to live there, to be fair.
But like Donald Trump, I mean, I'm sorry, the corrupt. You can love Trump as much as you want. I agree with loads of the policies that he's done. I love what he did in Israel. But I'm sorry, I love what he's doing with ICE and everything. But I'm sorry, the guy is definitely corrupt, and he's definitely basically enriching his family deliberately by being a president. That is morally wrong. It's deeply wrong, and let's face it, it's probably illegal as well. I hope it is illegal. But anyway, let's talk about Prince Andrew. Some of the pictures. I mean, there's this picture of him as a middle-aged man looking sweaty. Interesting, because he can't sweat. Leaning over this girl who's prone on the ground. We don't know, her face is react. We don't know whether she's conscious even or not. Doesn't look like she is, but she definitely looks quite slight. It's just creepy. Quite apart from the pictures of Mandelson and his underpants, it's just creepy. We've got a second woman who claims that she was trafficked by Epstein to him. His introduction was like a beautiful Russian woman to meet for dinner. I mean, clearly it was just, look, there have been rumours about Prince Andrew long before the Jeffrey Epstein stuff came out, and everyone knows. Here's my thing, and there's Fergie's emails, marry me, these rich people asking for favours and money. I don't understand, why do rich people constantly need to ask other rich people to give them money?
I don't know, it's rather gauche, I would have thought. But it turns out, we've known for some time, of course, that the British aristocracy isn't what it used to be. It isn't quite as wealthy as it used to be.
They want to be richer than they are.
But to be fair, these are not just members of the aristocracy. These were, at the time, literal members of the royal family. If anybody still had a little bit of spare cash or access to it, should have been
Mummy,
these people.
can you help me?
Yeah, exactly.
Here's the thing.
Obviously, we don't know the full context of these photographs, but if it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's going to make quite a good, confit de canard that evening. So, I think there's a lot to be written into.
I love that you use these phrases. But this is the thing with Andrew. There's been a lot of smell around already. He's already. I mean, there's down to King Charles. He has already lost his title of prince, his HRH. He's lost his big fancy house, and he's moved into these lodges things. They're still bigger than any house we could ever dream of owning ourselves. Who are we kidding? Still got servants and God knows what. There's a lot of talk about the Congress issue, and I really feel strongly about this. Should these men be forced to testify before Congress? Because they can't be forced unless they are in the country. We know that the FBI wanted to question Prince Andrew, but if both men are basically saying, look, I knew nothing. I didn't see anything. I mean, Prince Andrew's always said he knew nothing, but we caught him out in 10 lies in his Newsnight interview. Mandelson's been caught out a million times. Mandelson, his defence was, I'm gay. That wouldn't have been a party to that. I'm gay, so I can't spot a 14-year-old girl. I'm pretty sure, I could manage to do that, if I was a gay woman, But I mean, Do you think that we should actually say, look, you know what, unless you are willing to give evidence, we have to assume that there is something you want to hide? The
difficulty I have with all of this is that I don't think British citizens should be compelled if they've not been charged. And I think that the United States is a country that likes to throw its weight around. It can throw its weight around, but we are supposed to be an ally. We're supposed to be a country that has good relations with them, and very often that relationship is very one-way. And I'd say this about anybody. I know that it might stick in the craw a little bit because these are high-profile people accused of quite, involvement in quite a nasty sort of ring of individuals. I know people would like to get to the bottom of it. I agree. I'd like us to get to the bottom of it. But as a general principle, I don't think the British government should be saying to people, look, you've not been charged with anything at all, but we are going to effectively force you onto a plane. And of course, that will mean in handcuffs if you try to resist. I'm not okay with that. Actually.
And you're right, the Americans would not require it of their own citizens, which is a very fair point. But I mean, Donald Trump and Elon Musk have basically both said, look, the Epstein files absolve them of any particular allegation. I mean, Elon Musk's argument is, look, I was one trying to get these out there. There's a whole load of exchanges. Basically, everyone who said they had nothing to do with this guy after a certain point, we know, like Richard Branson, and they've said, look, basically they did some due diligence and they wouldn't even accept money from this guy for their charities. It does seem that people went, hold on a minute, there's a whiff around this. I'm going to have nothing to do with this guy. But people kept up polite email exchanges because he was man who they consider to be probably a danger if they didn't.
Well, this is, I suppose, actually part of the trickiness of all of this, which is that while somebody, especially before they've been convicted of anything, before anything's happened, if there are lots of rumours but they have a lot of influence, do you necessarily want to make an enemy of that person for no good reason? Because you don't know if they're ever going to be convicted of anything, or if they're ever going to do anything bad that'll come to light. So it's a trick. I do.
A lot of this, by the way,
understand.
Epstein had already been convicted of
That's
procuring
true.
a 14-year-old girl for prostitution.
That's true, but there were some cases of this, obviously, before being the case.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to Elon Musk, I do actually think a lot of this exonerates him, but not because he was a morally upstanding person. I think he was a bit too autistic and busy to understand what was going on. But from what I've read of his emails, I just go, oh, you're an idiot. You really don't understand what's going on here. You think of things in very black and white terms, and you have no ability to read between the nuance at all. When it comes to Trump, it's the omission as much as anything. It's the stuff that's not there that makes me think, I'm not sure this does exonerate you. I think there's a lot more that's not being said here.
They moved in the same circles for years.
Even if he clocked him, he was not, actively trying to avoid him, was he? It's not. It's not.
I don't think you can avoid people in those. There are plenty of people I try to avoid, and I keep bumping into them. There
Like
we are.
me.
Hi, Benedict. There's so much more I want to talk about. Lots of stories we're going to cover over the show, but let's talk about Keir Starmer returning from China. I mean, humiliating doesn't do justice to that trip. Even just down to, oh, by the way, we'll let you go to Forbidden City. Yeah, sure, Trump. He got a tour with the President Xi Jinping hosting him while it was cleared out of tourists. You just walked around with some 2-bit tourist guide while all the tourists gawped. I mean, the whole thing, we came away with nothing. Even the so-called business investments was mostly them investing in China, not the other way around. What an absolute joke. And in return for which, and it was very clear, the trip was not going to be on until that Chinese embassy got the go-ahead. We've given away prime London territory to basically a spy hub for our hostile nation.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I mean, I thought that the optics of him going to the Forbidden City were quite good, because the Chinese are probably just stood there going, look, this is a thing and it's got walls and it's got a gate, and if you're not allowed in, we don't let you in. You should try that sometime with your own border. As an aside, if I was offered a personal tour around the Forbidden City, I'd take it. It's very spectacular. People probably shouldn't go, but one day maybe you'll get the chance
I've been told I can't go to China ever. I'm really genuinely gutted that it simply would not be safe.
The Summer Palace is better, in case people are thinking about it, but the Forbidden City is pretty good.
Thanks.
Nonetheless, it was simply a humiliation ritual, and the Chinese are very keen on that sort of thing. Let's be clear. China is not the Soviet Union. It's not interested in world domination in the same way as the USSR was, or global revolutions towards communism. What it is really keen on is extracting these sort of humiliation rituals from the country it deems to be part of its century of humiliation, of which we are pretty much slap bang at the top. They love this. I mean, right down from the fact that a country where the average height is about 5'6" men managed to find every 6'4" soldier across the country to line up for when Starmer was there, so he looked tiny. Don't tell me that they were not loving the optics of all of this. And as you say, he's come away with what? A couple of 30-day visas for people who are allowed to go to China. Whoop-de-doo.
And the MPs who were sanctioned, they're now allowed to go. I'm pretty sure that Tom Tugendhat and Ian Smith won't be going to China anytime soon.
And that's so, of course, that a reciprocal visit is made a little bit smoother, because obviously he can't go if there are MPs not allowed into the bill. So it was all just a bit of a nothing burger, but it's one of those things where, Starmer, he doesn't like being in this country. He likes the international stage. He likes the prestige that he feels.
Well, he's come back to more trouble at home, hasn't he, with Gorton by-election and all of that. We'll talk about that later in the show. But let's talk about the Grammy Awards. Talking of a nothing burger, I hate all these awards ceremonies, utterly. And as usual, they had absolute nonsense. I mean, just absolute nonsense from the usual suspects. We've got a little bit of a clip of Billie Eilish. She accepted an award for the best song, and here's what she had to say.
No one is illegal on stolen land. And I feel like we just need to keep fighting and speaking up and protesting, and our voices really do matter, and the people matter, and I say sorry.
We had to be like that. She said the F word about ICE, the people who are going around arresting and deporting people who've entered the country illegal and then committed crimes. Yeah, you're so stunning and brave, Billy. First of all, where's Ricky Gervais when you need him? Because he used to do, of course, the Golden Globes?
Golden Globes.
And it was so funny every time. And he just totally took them apart. Shut up, come up, get your award, sit down, you don't know anything, you use it. They really don't know anything. And as I pointed out on social media this morning, genuinely, these people know, stolen land because the Native Americans lived there first. Literally, someone lived everywhere first. Move on. This is sixth form politics. But also, if it is stolen land, well, you own a couple of lovely properties. I think she's got a property, I think in LA, she's got property, on the beachfront, $4.5 million or
These
something.
places one hears of, Malibu and stuff like that. You think that sounds exciting.
I'm thinking, well, I mean, if it's stolen land, I mean, you just give it to anyone who wants it. All these people, they've got security around their own homes. They absolutely love a bit of security around the concerts when they're selling tickets at high prices, don't they? So, but if it's all stolen land, surely anyone can just walk in. And people say, like, well, that's a silly comparison. But so is the idea that that you should be cheered on by a load of, sort of clapping seals like this. That when you say, basically, no one's illegal and anyone can be here, you're basically saying, this is America. There should be no borders whatsoever. Anyone can live anywhere they sodding well want to. OK, but that's crazy. And it's being cheered on by a bunch of rich people in posh dresses.
I mean, listen, if you are somebody who purchases their music, or if they're actors, their films and that sort of thing, because they're good in those contexts, that's absolutely fine. But you're under absolutely no obligation to listen to what they have to say about anything else. Hugh Bonneville, the guy who was in, Downton Abbey and a couple of other things, he was getting quite irate at the weekend as well, saying, I don't feel that I should have to stay in my lane if I think that I should be able to speak out about these things. To which my response is actually, yes, you're allowed to speak out about these things, but I'm allowed to judge you pretty harshly based on what it is you say. And that's always the case with these people. They have huge platforms and they spew utter nonsense. And people sort of lap it up and they listen to it. And it doesn't matter that enough people might go, well, this is nonsense, you clearly don't know what you're talking about. Because enough people also will go, oh, yeah, that sounds about right. Oh, this person's got influence and they're a great musician, therefore they must have half a brain cell. And you can think, but also, the half brain cell is only focusing on making music.
Yeah, but also I'm so moral. And of course, I would not be referring to anyone particular that has been in a part of this conversation. But the sort of celebrities who have, for instance, super injunctions that not only mean that media can't write about them, but they can't even write about or talk about the fact there is a super injunction. I mean, wouldn't it be interesting if someone like that spoke out on television about wrongdoing? Wouldn't that be terrible and incredibly hypocritical? But of course, I'm not referring to anyone individually or specifically at all, because I wouldn't be legally allowed to do that. But what if someone did? What if someone did take out a super injunction? And then they did that. Wouldn't that be something to laugh at? Yeah, anyway, completely coincidental conversation, that, but there we are. My mind just moves from things to things. I would love to hear your thoughts about the Epstein files. There's revelations, more damaging revelations for the artist formerly known as Prince Andrew, for Lord Mandelson, still a lord, no longer in the Labour Party. He's been pushed out 3 times from jobs for wrongdoing, for lying. I mean, I'm sorry, how many times? This raises questions about Keir Starmer's judgment, Morgan McSweeney, his chief of staff. This is the guy who's basically quietly running the country, yeah? And this is how bad his judgment is. You could argue, King Charles did what he should have done. I've got to be honest with you, got some big questions about what the Queen knew, the late Queen knew, what her senior staff knew about what Prince Andrew was up to and who he was consorting with, and all the security detail. Every single police officer who was on a security detail would have been completely aware of what was going on. They were there, they knew where he was staying, they knew what was going on. Questions should have been raised a lot sooner, should they not? But should they be forced to testify before Congress? What do you think should happen? Let me know what your thoughts are. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. But of course, you can call in about any other topics you want to call in about, including anything about Keir Starmer and his fun and games. Also, the likes of the Billie Eilishes of this world pontificating and being stunning and brave with their virtue signalling. I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense.
welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
That's Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCown.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits, and that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beers, and I feel
raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of its desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. Welcome back to the show. 10:28 is the time. Let's go straight to the phone lines. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Barry is in Norwich, wants to have his say on the Epstein files. Good morning to you, Barry.
Good morning, Julie. Good morning, Benedict. Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment on these Epstein stuff. That's okay. A couple of comments regarding Mr. Mandelson. Why is Peter Mandelson not being arrested for misconduct in public office? I don't understand. Yeah, right. How this individual is not answering questions, right, for what's going on. I don't care if he's saying, like, you know, he didn't know, because if you went to that island, you knew what was going on. Yeah, let's be straight. The whole elite class in this world have been at it for years.
Well,
right?
This is the thing. I mean, from what I've seen, read about in documentaries, it was impossible to be in his house in New York, Epstein's house in New York, or on the island without being aware that you were surrounded by 14 and 15-year-olds.
Yeah, and as for Prince Andrew, right? I mean, I'm not saying this because I'm a Republican. I am a Republican, right? I don't understand how you can just bung someone 13 whatever £million it was, if you didn't know the person, right? And
never met her. Never met Virginia Giuffre. I think it was 10 million.
Yeah, if you are innocent and generally innocent, then you should get yourself on a plane, go over to the United States and answer questions if you are innocent. Yeah, right? Yeah. Right? And
we're entitled to read into that, although there's no.
I know he hasn't been charged. No one's been charged. But I'm saying, if you are generally innocent and someone's throwing about allegations like that about you, then you should get yourself on the next available flight and fly over to the United States and answer the questions that need to be answered, right? Yeah. Because I'm sorry, right? I just think the whole thing stinks. And you got Keir Starmer saying that Andrew should go over to the United States. This is the individual who's in charge of a party, who's the Prime Minister's country, whose MPs refuse to have a national inquiry about the paedophile rape gangs in this country.
Yeah, well, he told everyone we were on jumping a far-right bandwagon before he agreed to have one, but then it still isn't getting going. Well, that's the thing on Peter Mandelson. Again, he's not been accused of any particular crime. We need to say that for obvious legal reasons. But there's lots of question marks. Like, in his case, doesn't have any recollection of this money. At the time then he was business secretary, it would appear from the Epstein files, if these files are true, that he was being sent these are huge sums of money. Maybe not to him, maybe not to Epstein, but to everyone else. He and his then boyfriend, now husband, were being sent sums of money at a time when he was business secretary, and it appears that he was forwarding information, confidential information that would have been of financial use, and also lobbying on behalf of banks, which Epstein was working for, JP Morgan and others, to try and get bankers' bonuses taxed at not 50%, as Gordon Brown had brought in after the financial crisis. I mean, these are not just breaches of ministerial code. These are acts, if true, the way you could clearly see charges of misconduct in public office, a criminal act having been committed, if they are true. And I'm with you all the way on that, Barry. Big question marks. Thank you for that. Andrew's on the line. He's in Hertfordshire. Good morning to you, Andrew. How are you?
Good morning, Julia. Nice to hear your bright and cheery voice on this day. First, look, the Mandelson thing is amazing. Why would he fall on his sword? This is a man who would not fall on his sword before. if you follow the money, it's clear that his partner, the gentleman from Brazil, the money potentially could have gone there. So the man that should be sent to America to testify and be cut a deal.
But we know that his partner Ronaldo, well, but they were together, but they weren't, official partners. That he got a $10,000 apparently loan to go on some course of some sort by Epstein. But we know, we've seen bank documents that say that there's money that's gone into Mandelson's account directly. Now, he says he has no recollection of it, but...
Yeah, so why don't we follow the money, put that man, his partner, on a stand in America once the FBI have cut him a deal, and that is the way to find the truth, because he is the canary in the coal mine.
Why do you think he would speak up if he saw wrongdoing, if it was with his partner Mandelson? And no one's actually accusing Peter Mandelson of wrongdoing of the likes of Jeffrey Epstein, but accusing him of having very poor judgment and being around somebody who he knew had already been convicted of soliciting a 14-year-old girl for prostitution.
No, but what I'm accusing Peter Mandelson of is falling on his sword so that he can seize the moment, the narrative goes on to him, and we avoid following the money.
No,
the money...
I don't think, Andrew, I don't think anyone's avoiding following the money. I really, really don't. I think there'll be a private prosecution if there isn't a public one at this rate. Andrew, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much. 10:34 is the time. Going to take a break. Then we're going to be talking to the former head of Royal Protection, Di Davies, about, well, what would people have known about what Prince Andrew was seeing, doing and saying? That's up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Benedict Spence also with me. This is Talk, the home of common sense. Well, let's go to our first guest now, former head of Royal Protection, Di Davies, to talk about, well, the Epstein latest revelations, certainly in relation to the artist formerly known as Prince Andrew. Good morning to you, Di.
Good morning to you. Lovely to be back with you.
Thank you very much for joining us. I suppose just to leave it very open, really. What do you make of all the latest revelations, the photographs of Prince Andrew apparently over, on all fours over a woman? She looks like she may or may not be unconscious, rather creepy. All the emails between Sarah Ferguson, his ex-wife, and obviously close confidant, and Jeffrey Epstein, and the latest revelations claims a second woman claiming that she was trafficked by Epstein to Prince Andrew. What do you make of all of that?
Well, as I said, good morning. Well, this is like a boil. 6 years ago, I went on Newsnight 2 nights after that famous interview, and I said then the Metropolitan Police should investigate it properly. And 3 times, I think 4 times now, they, for their own reasons, have decided there isn't sufficient evidence. I say, if you don't investigate properly, you'll never find evidence. And yet, time and time again, not only I, but Andrew Lowney, the famous author who's written a book, who often on your program and others, he has held out sincerely 4 years of investigation into this family. And I've worked with him over years now, and I believe his intelligence, his knowledge, and his ability to hold people to account. And this, as I say, is a boil. It hasn't been lanced 6 years ago or more. So the question I'm asking, there ought to be 4 separate or conjoined investigations, starting with the police. Please, will you explain why you don't find there's sufficient evidence, why he shouldn't be interviewed under caution? If it was you or I or anyone else, he would be interviewed under caution across a range of aspects. The second one, what on earth went on when he was our trade envoy, where he took a variety of now infamous individuals on these trips with him, where it was quite clear he was acting in his own interests as well, arguably, are our own. So that's one.
Yep.
The big one for me is, what on earth were our security services doing? For many, many years, people have known about this. We're meant to have a good liaison with the United States. Didn't anybody bring this to notice? Didn't anybody notice that he was dealing with Russians, Chinese, Israelis? What on earth is going on? What is the point of our Secret Service, I have to ask, if somebody in authority, the head of it, should be asked, what did you know? Who did you tell? And why didn't anybody do anything?
Yes.
And the last one is the palace themselves. What did they know? Who has covered up for him for many, many years? And lastly, what did my former colleagues know who went everywhere with him along with his staff? Somebody has kept quiet for such a long time, and I hope their moral compass is going havoc, because it deserves to be.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more on every single aspect of that. Covered it absolutely all. This is a question I've been asking for a long time. As you know, again, allegations have been made against a senior figure. Someone just makes a vague allegation on social media. The police call them in. So I don't know how the hell he hasn't been investigated. But that's always been my view. People in the palace, royal protection officers, all would have been there, seen everything. They knew where he was. Was Prince Andrew with Epstein on this date or that day? Well, let's check the official record, shall we? But also, what those royal protection officers, what they would be required, what would be necessary for them to pass upwards. Because presumably, we're staying at that convicted paedophile's home in New York. The prince is staying. The then monarch's son is staying at the home for 4 days of a man who has a conviction for soliciting a 14-year-old for prostitution. And everyone knows, even at that time, people in that world would have known there was no smoke without fire. There was a lot of other allegations made that were dropped. And then he's staying in the home. Does that information get automatically passed up the chain to the royal protection head? And does that then get passed to the Queen, as it was then's private staff? Do they then pass it on? Was she shielded from it? Was she one of those mothers who went, he's my favourite son, I can't possibly believe it? What do you think went on?
Well, I have to say, he was still in the Navy or retiring from the Navy when I left. So none of this crossed my desk, as it were. If it had been and the officers had brought it to notice, clearly you would put it up the chain, way above my pay grade. But certainly you would have to have serious consideration, in the same way that when Mr. Fayed was taking Diana on holiday, I went to see the commissioner and we discussed that, and I then phoned to Robert Fellows to say, don't go.
You went to the Metropolitan Police Chief Commissioner?
Yes, I did. And I explained that there was an investigation going on to him and so on. So that's what I would have done. And clearly, in the same way, there were allegations perhaps that one or two may have been dabbling with drugs. In the same way, we looked at it and said, well, there's no real evidence and so on and so forth. I won't mention who it was, but it's female, closely linked to Andrew. So all I will say, that's enough on that time.
Just for legal reasons, there is no...
Yes.
I need to stress that we have no evidence for that, no right to reply, but yeah.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say, and everybody says, well, he vehemently denies. Well, he would, wouldn't he? And so would I if I was alleged to be and had allegedly done some of the things that he's alleged to do. We keep saying allegedly. But what I'm trying to say, this is a family. If it was you and I, and we'd behaved like this, we would have been arrested, investigated, both here and in the United States.
Should Prince Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, should he testify before Congress? He wouldn't even speak to the FBI. He clearly, he's trying to make this go behind. He put behind him. He clearly thought that, that disastrous Newsnight interview with Emily Maitlis would put it behind him. And of course, it's turned out to be the worst thing he's ever done, other than the allegations of what he has done, which of course he has denied. Do you think there is any way that he should be forced to do that?
I don't think you can be under our current law. What could happen is the FBI send officers here or others, and a civil action could take place against the current former woman who's alleged. And you have to say where she's been all this time. And the other bit, in fairness, where's the other 29 individuals, high-powered people? People saying, oh, we're picking on Andrew or we're picking on Mandelson. No, we're not in that sense. It's merely they're the ones that have been exposed to the level that they have. But there are 29 others, according to some of the defence of the victims. And again, the victims are important here. So there are huge questions to ask of our Prime Minister. Yeah. There are huge questions to ask about what due diligence was done. And
with the appointment of Peter Mandelson. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, look, anyone who's already been sacked from 2 jobs for telling lies, I think we're allowed to safely say he's probably not a good person to be our ambassador to the US. I said he lies 4 times before breakfast. It's what he does. He's lied about everything from the loan to buy his Notting Hill mansion to, and has lied every single day since about everything. He has no recollection. Again, I think someone with that bad a memory shouldn't be appointed to such an important job. Big question marks, as one of our callers just raised, about whether he should be investigated for misconduct in public office. But this whole thing, what do you make? And there are people. There's lots of conspiracy theories. Oh, we don't know. Was Epstein working? Was the CIA protecting him? That's one of the theories I've heard. Was he working with Putin? Was he working with the Mossad in Israel? Those allegations. Is there a ring of multi-millionaire, billionaire, very rich, powerful men who get away with everything because they are so powerful and rich? I mean, what do you make of all those theories?
Well, that's why I say there ought to be a proper investigation, and there ought to be an parliamentary inquiry into our security services to ask who knew what over the years. Yep. Successive foreign secretaries and prime ministers should, and I suspect were informed of this. Yes. And again, what on earth were they all doing? And why are we still not investigating the links with the Chinese, the links with various people in the east of the world, where Afghanistan and all the rest of it. And again, Afghanistan, there was a huge alleged deal to be done there years after he's allegedly. And people say, well, he's not guilty of anything. Yes, he is. He's guilty of a huge amount of lies.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this is a proven liar.
Do you think in the case of Prince Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, do you think that King Charles did the right thing, and did he act soon enough? Because I've got a very strong impression that Charles had wanted Andrew to be cast out of the family long before, and basically was waiting until he was able to do it. The late Queen would never willingly do this to her favourite son. Do you think King Charles acted soon enough?
No, I think they were reacting after the event to some degree. Now, in fairness to King Charles, what did he know? We don't know. Yeah. But certainly those advising him and the Queen would have known. And I go back to Perkins, who was the Deputy Press Secretary, who was part of this. Let's check out Guthrie. Let's do checks on to see if she's got bad behaviour. That wouldn't have stopped it, as you know, as a journalist with the deputy press. It would have gone up the chain, and it would eventually have gone to the Queen's private secretary. None of these people have been investigated. Nobody has gone to the palace, knocked on the door and said, excuse me, would you come down to Charing Cross, because I'd like a little word with you.
Absolutely.
Nobody has. And somebody has covered this for years and years. And it stinks.
Di Davies, former head of Royal Protection, thank you very much indeed. Benedict Spence listening to that. Look, he did not pull any punches there, Di. He's saying, look, as you said, when Diana was seeing, hanging out with Mohammed Fayed, he went straight to the Met chief to say, look, just got to flag there's some issues here. there's no world in which the Queen, late Queen's senior staff didn't know whether they told her or not. I don't know, but certainly King Charles, once he's found out, he's obviously gone, "You're out, mate. You're damage to the institution."
I wouldn't be surprised at all, actually, if the Queen was not told anything like the true extent of this, because of course there is exactly, to protect her, and there is of course this network of people who advise and help. But of course it's not dissimilar to the civil service with the Prime Minister and stuff. It's, well, what does that person need to know, and what can I keep within my remit? Because it gives a degree of plausible deniability, and also it maintains that person's power. So I think that's not, that is something that needs to be borne in mind.
Perfectly likely. Well, it's like Di Davis, there needs to be an investigation. Who knew what when? 10:47 is the time. Love to hear your reaction to that interview. 0344 499 1000. Up next, going to talk about benefits Britain. We are now sort of a failing country with a welfare state attached. That's what Ian Duncan-Smith said yesterday. I think he might be right. We'll be talking to Taxpayers Alliance up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning. Welcome back to the show. Well, we'll leave Epstein briefly. I'd love to hear your thoughts, honestly. Get in touch, 0344 499 1000 on that and any of the topics we're talking about. You might want to have your say on this next one. Well done, Bryn. Little round of applause. Well done. We are going to be basically handing out the most benefits in the entire G7 group of wealthy countries. Well done us. Nice to know we're good at something. Handing out people's hard-earned taxes to people sitting on their sodding backsides. Well, let's talk about it with Elliot Keck. He's head of campaigns at the Taxpayers Alliance. Good morning to you, Elliot.
Good morning, Julia.
It's good to know we're good at something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, when they first set up the welfare state and the welfare state became a concept, I don't think that was supposed to be the entirety of the country and the end goal. And I think we're in a very dangerous situation now, because with 1 in 4 Brits better off on benefits than in work, we're getting to the point where it's not just the shirkers that are going on to benefits, it's people that would actually quite like to work but are starting to wonder what on earth is the point.
Yeah, well, exactly. And again, a lot of people who sort of say, oh, people would never choose to be on benefits. I mean, clearly they don't know other people. But again, for a lot of people, it's not like they're going to do the minimum wage job, but in 6 months' time they'll be promoted and life's going to be great. You know, no, a lot of people are going to know they're going to stay on a minimum wage job for the rest of their lives, and they're going, but the bloke next door has more than me, and he doesn't go to work at all. And this is a report from the Centre for Social Justice, the one that the think tank set up by Ian Duncan-Smith, pointing out that, you know, more than 6 million Brits, as you say, 1 in 4 of working people are earning less than people can get in benefits. If you were basically, if you're, you know, you've got disability benefit, you've got kids, you know, you're getting housing benefit on average, you know, the average amount, you're going to be better off not working. That is an insane position for us to be in.
Yeah, it's very dangerous, as I said, and of course that's just compared to full-time workers. If you're someone that is only able or only willing or only wants to work part-time, you know, the equation shifts even more dramatically in favour of benefits. And listen, we know that there will always be people that will be willing to accept less on benefits than they could get as a wage, but they're happy to do that because they don't want to work even if they can work. But really, we are getting to the point now where there's lots of people that would work, would be happy to work. But if you can get more just by signing a few papers, by maybe, exaggerating your ADHD or anxiety or whatever else it is, and then you get a big fat paycheck at the end of it that's better than your neighbour that's having to get up at 6 a.m. every day. That incentive structure is really, really
I mean, they're making a rational decision for themselves, although actually long term they're probably not. But there is a morality issue. I mean, no one who is unable to work because they're sick, properly sick, having proper mental health, serious mental health problems, or disabled in a way that they simply cannot work. No one should ever feel any shame or embarrassment for getting benefits, and we need to be helping those people more. A lot of those people are really struggling, but we'd be able to do that if we didn't have a load of people swinging the lead. But feeling a bit anxious on a Monday morning is not an excuse for not going to work. And it is extraordinary how much money people are getting, because we're often told, oh, people are only getting 60 quid a week or whatever it is, completely ignoring they're getting 200 or 300 quid a week in housing benefit and all the other benefits. And it's really interesting, the universal credit stats, which this has been published today, that basically you've got universal credit payments totaling 100 billion quid. 100 billion quid, which money, by the way, we don't have. But actually there's an extra 10 billion in hidden benefits that people are getting as well. What are they?
Well, yeah, and exactly, and as you mentioned, there are people with very, very serious health conditions, people that have cystic fibrosis, conditions that are extremely crippling, and nobody doesn't want to see those people looked after. Nobody doesn't want to see very generous benefits given out. And ideally, we want the welfare system to be a bit like the immigration system, one that has all the toxicity taken out of it, one that is welcoming to people who deserve or need to come here or claim money from the state, but there isn't just open to abuse by shirkers and people with bad incentives.
Well, exactly. I mean, again, it's about you could get you get your council taxes cheaper, you get home with bills, you get free prescriptions, school meals for your kids. There's you sign on to one benefit now. There's a whole world of benefits opens, which kind of explains why we are now the top welfare state in the G7. What are we doing differently from other countries? Because lots of people are saying the reason why we've had this massive increase, and I think we're looking at 500 extra people a day signing on largely for the anxiety and depression, ADHD and autism as why they can't work, and then being written off for life, never having to even look for work. We're looking at that, going on. Where a lot of people say that's down to lockdown. But we know all the other countries in the G7 did lockdowns too, and they haven't got the same issue.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely were one of the stricter and harsher lockdowns in a lot of the OECD. In particular, we will have one of the strictest and harshest lockdowns when it came to schools and universities. And when you see spikes, in particular for people of young age, then that might explain some of it. But listen, people have been scratching their heads. Unfortunately, it must be something to do with British society, British culture at this current moment. It's very difficult to explain. Many people smarter than me have looked into it and have not quite been able to work it out.
But it's all untenable. We don't have the money for people now. It's getting worse and worse and worse. The government hasn't got a will to deal with it. That tentative attempt to get 5 billion, and it wasn't even 5 billion off welfare. It was going to be going up by 5 billion less than it's going to go up by. So it wasn't even going to be a cut. We ain't got the money. We've got fewer and fewer people being born to go and then work, go into the workplace. People are getting older, which is a good thing. We're living longer. We are going to have fewer and fewer people of working age. We need anybody who can to be working. Otherwise our economy just goes, it implodes. What would you do? What if you were in government? What would you do to change things?
Well, what's really horrifying is the government's choices at the moment, and the government have made it very, very clear they are not going to look at welfare reform. And it makes me think of the days where MPs were genuinely imbued with a sense of national duty, a willingness to put aside their own personal interests to tackle major crises. These Labour backbenchers, these Labour ministers are not willing to do that. They're far more interested in saving their skin, supporting their CVs when they go into a mental health charity or whatever it is. And as a result, the government's putting it off. What needs to be done is we need to take a very serious look at the mental health conditions in particular. Some of the spikes there, we're seeing 5-6-fold increases in the number of people claiming anxiety, depression and all the rest of it. We need in-person appointments for all benefit claims. They're just a couple of things that I would tick off very, very quickly.
We could solve a lot of it just with that, could we not? Elliot Keck, you've done fantastic work there at Taxpayers Alliance, Head of Campaigns. Thank you for that. Benedict Spence, I mean, this really gets people's goat, especially a miserable, cold day and people are getting up early on a Monday morning at the beginning of February to go to work, knowing that there are millions of people who could be at work and who are choosing not to, and we're allowing, this is a stupid thing, we're allowing them to make that choice.
We're allowing them to make that choice, and at the same time various governments have sort of continued to spin the lie that there are massive job shortages of people, we need to employ lots of people, the only way we can do it is by importing them from elsewhere, and at the same time there are all those people who aren't working at all. And I think it is really interesting, because this idea that we like to portray, that this is a fundamentally hard-working country that likes a sense of fair play, I think has been somewhat shattered by the pandemic, because it's clear that whilst there are a lot of people who do still adhere to that, far too many people are swinging the lead. And the simple fact of the matter is, taking that, what you were talking about right at the end, the fact that you might need to go and see somebody in person for them to go, yes, you are ill, or there is something wrong, having that no longer be a requirement was the most obvious example of, well, I wonder why, this is something happened. Because you just go on the phone and somebody goes, well, I'm incentivized to sign you off because I need to get to the next person. Off you go. How nobody saw this coming and why it hasn't already been reversed, and every single one of those
even
people
if we
asked
got
to
it
go back to the job centre or whoever it is, or the doctor, why is that not
even if we went back to 2019 levels, that would even be a start. But I mean, we're not talking about going back to the Victorian ages, to 20 I mean, I am too, 2019 levels. We need to get back to 2019 levels, and then in the next term in office, whoever is in office, we need to get back to where we were in 1997.
Yes,
we really do.
Workhouses.
Listen, I say, come the revolution when I'm in charge, and I'm sorry, an awful lot of this when it comes to young people. This is parenting. This is parents failing to teach a work ethic to their children and letting them. I'm sorry, you've got to own it. You can't take credit when your kid turns out well if you're not willing to take credit if they turn out badly. That's the deal. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Give us a call 0344 499 1000. Plenty more to come. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. morning, welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. And whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, on your smart speaker, whether you're watching on YouTube or you're connected to my, thank you so much for your company. Just approaching 3 minutes past 11, lots to talk about, lots of calls on the board. Obviously, we are talking an awful lot about these latest revelations about, well, particularly the artist formerly known as Prince Andrew, and of course Lord Manson, who is no longer a member of the Labour Party, no longer a US ambassador, but is still a peer. Apparently we need an act of parliament for him not to be a peer. Why do you need to have the peerage, mate, if you're not going to, as you apparently said, going to go back in the House of Lords? And why did you get one in the first place? Another big question there. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Also, this breaks my soul, this story. The countryside is going to be made less white under nationwide diversity plans. I kid you not. What are they going to do? Bus people in? You're black. You're black, living in an inner city. You're Asian. No, and live in the Midlands. No. Come on to the Cotswolds. We're going to bus you in. I mean, this is genuinely insane stuff. But we'll talk about that. I'll try and do it with a straight face. Keir Starmer is facing calls from even Labour MPs. They've worked it out to scrap plans to house asylum seekers in newly built council homes. Yeah, you'd think people might be annoyed about that. Plus also the latest on Iran, not just a nuclear deal, Donald Trump says he's hopeful, but also what is still going on the streets. So we'll talk about all of that, plenty more besides. Delighted to say joining me for all the chat today is Benedict Spence, Conservative commentator. Morning.
Good morning. I'm slightly horrified by the optics of what you just described. The idea of people going around, grabbing ethnic minorities, banging them onto a train and going, "You're going to Penrith," and then going, "No, don't take me to Penrith."
But we're going to send you to, I don't know, wherever.
It's for your own good.
We'll send you to Bradford. We're going to bus in. We're going to bus in posh people in three-piece suits.
Oh my! Yeah, wow. No, that's exactly what we should do. We take the people from Bradford, we'll put them in Kensington, and we'll take the people in Kensington, we'll take them to Bradford, and we'll just see what happens. It'll be like when the Chinese sent all the bourgeois to the countryside.
I would definitely watch that Channel 5 series. That's all I could. Yeah, House
that would be great.
No, but it's the idea that people go, they're not. Take Jane Urquhart said there are not enough black and Asian people in the countryside. The horrible thing is it's white middle class people who are going to the countryside. How very, very dare they? I mean, it's genuinely scary that these people think like this. You know why they think like this, though? It's because they're racist, because all they see is the colour of people's skin. And that's what racists do, which means that's why they're racist.
Do you want to know one of the things that this report had as a reason why it might be exclusionary to ethnic minorities? It's because traditional countryside pubs serve traditional food and alcohol, which might be exclusionary to Muslims. And you say, good Lord, I'm shocked to find that there is alcohol at this traditional pub. I mean what?
Listen,
what is the point? I mean, I know Labour's trying to close them all.
I'm just amazed there's still a country pub, exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow. I mean, we could do all hour on this one, couldn't we? Look, let's go back to the Epstein files. With it's Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Second woman claiming that she was trafficked to him by Epstein. There's a horrible photo of him kneeling over a girl. We don't know. There's all his wife's emails, ex-wife Fergie's emails. But, marry me, you superstar, I love you. I mean, basically, these people were just completely up his backside. They really were desperate, cadging for money, cadging for free flights to islands and goodness knows what. And just everything's utterly inappropriate. And pretty much all of this contact was after he had been convicted of basically soliciting a 14-year-old girl for prostitution. 14-year-old girls can't be prostitutes because they can't consent to sex because they're children. This, of course, is all spurious, all lies, according to them. Peter Mandelson also thought this was all spurious and all lies, even though, small point worth making, Jeffrey Epstein basically accepted all intents and purposes his guilt in this. He said it was all lies and everything, but when taking the deal he did was an acceptance of guilt. Why would you ever do that if you were completely innocent? Prince Andrew is in, he's already lost his title, his HRH, his home, blah, blah, blah. Mandelson resigned from the Labour Party late last night over the allegation of this $75,000 set of payments to him from Epstein while he was business secretary, $10,000 to his now husband, a photo of him in his pants. I've just got to... but it has no recollection of any of it. There's loads of documents about him basically as business secretary effectively passing on confidential information that could affect the markets to his financier, billionaire, best pal, as he called him, which would have given him financial benefits, taking money, which he has no recollection of, according to these documents. I don't know whether they're true or not. Presumably, Mandelson has his own bank statements. He could look them up. I mean, I think the bank's been open for a few hours. You could have found out whether those sums of money came into your bank account or not, couldn't you, by now? And I like to think, however rich you are, you might notice $75,000 arriving in your bank account. I mean, I'm thinking you might go, oh, there's a lot more money in there than I thought. But the idea that he was actually, while business secretary, he was getting information, and also Jeffrey Epstein, while paying him money, was saying, can you try and get rid of this banker's bonus, this 50% banker's bonus that Gordon Brown's brought in? He was representing JP Morgan at the time. I mean, and Mandelson was saying he was lobbying for it. I mean, this isn't just, bad form. As one of our callers pointed out earlier, there are strong arguments here for him to be facing investigation over misconduct in public office, 100% on the basis of what we've seen. He may be entirely innocent, who knows? But he's still a peer. We have to have an act of parliament to get him out of here. I mean, the whole thing is a horrible, stinking mess. But here's the thing. This has all happened pretty much in plain sight. Yeah. They were public about their friendships with this man, even after... They've denied it since, even after he had been convicted of a horrible crime against a 14-year-old girl.
I mean, it is pretty staggering, the amount of all this that's been going on. It's sort of been known, but not quite been known. And can you prove it? Not quite, but everybody...
If you wanted to know, you could know.
Yeah, there's enough of it out there for you to suspect, there's something dodgy. I think there's an interesting sort of juxtaposition here, because questions, I think, have to be raised about the judgment of Keir Starmer deciding to bring back Lord Mandelson in his position. Having just come back from China, where they've just done a massive purge of the military on allegations and nothing more. And you sort of look at it seems to be that in life you can either have everything's allowed to happen in plain sight and nobody gets investigated and punished, or all you need is an allegation, at which point everyone ends up in the gulag. And there never seems to be any sort of middle way in between. You just wish we were able to come to that. But in this country, we seem to go for he's a good old chap, and he might have done a few things wrong, but he'll pick himself back up. He's done it before.
The Gorton and Denton by-election, this one there's big fuss about with Andy Burnham not being allowed to stand and all of that, that has all come about because Andrew Gwynn, who was a health minister, was forced to resign as health minister and lost the Labour whip because he wrote some messages in a private, fun, Shiver Me Timbers or something, wasn't it?
Yeah,
WhatsApp group. Yeah. And basically he made some glib, quite nasty, but obviously a joke remark about a pensioner complaining about winter fuel costs and saying, you'll be dead anyway before the next election, I don't care about you. Yeah. It's nasty and tacky. And because Labour, those are the MPs who would have called for a Tory or Reform MP to resign, who'd said the same thing. But I don't think people should have to resign over things they write in private groups. I think people have a right to privacy and a right to make nasty, tacky jokes and not have the whole character judged on it. But so Keir Starmer thought that Andrew Gwynn was not fit to be a Labour MP because of that. But he absolutely had no problem with Peter Mandelson being Britain's man in Washington when he had already been forced out of two jobs because he'd been found to have lied about, his loan from Jeffrey Robertson for his home, and he lied to anyone and everyone about that, and his dealings with Indian millionaires. I'm sorry, he was already up to his eyeballs. There were huge questions about his business dealings when he was a European Commissioner. There were huge questions about him constantly and some of his contacts. Even though it raised concerns about his dealings with China that made him a totally inappropriate appointee. Questions have to be asked about, you say, not just Keir Starmer, but also, it keeps coming up, his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, who clearly is absolutely unfit for this job.
Oh, absolutely. But it's hard to find anybody in the Labour government right now who you'd look at and go, yes, I think you're doing a good job and are fit for this role. Because, what's particularly staggering is, even if none of this has been proven, there are sort of no charges, no major allegations specifically against him, and it's all sort of flitting around the edges. The optics of all of this, given that this is a government that, when it came into power, we've already been through the whole the furore of Jimmy Savile and Operation Yewtree and the Me Too and how the public feels about allegations about sexual abuse, especially against children. Not great. We already had bubbling on the horizon. It had yet to fully hit, but they knew full well about the allegations about the grooming gang scandal, the role that local politicians had played, Labour as a party's role in not pursuing that properly. They knew, again, this sort of thing does not... Strange, isn't it, that child sex abuse, rape of young women, does not go down well, particularly well with the general public.
Funny that.
So why is it that they looked at this man with the known ties to a convicted sex offender who is already being embroiled posthumously in a huge scandal in the United States and thought, nothing bad can come of this.
Yeah.
This is absolutely the sort of man. It's the idiocy, the lack of
How
vision.
brilliant is Peter Mandelson that was worth the risk? My thing is, again, everyone says he's brilliantly clever. He is obviously clever, you know, he's obviously an operator and he's earned a load of money over the time. He's embroiled himself in goodness knows what. But apparently so successful he still needs billionaires to send him money that he doesn't recollect. But my thing is always, if you're that clever, you don't get caught.
Yeah.
By definition, if you're that clever, you don't get caught.
Which isn't perhaps
and you
the way to
don't get
spin
caught
it,
for silly
but still.
things like taking a loan from another cabinet minister. You know, Geoffrey Robinson. You don't get caught for fixing the Hinduja brothers and fixing a British passport for them. You don't get caught for stuff like
I was
that.
going to say, the amounts of money also, and this is very classically British, it's not even as if these are sort of catastrophic amounts of money.
It's not, I've given you, it's not 100 million quid life-changing
like how
money.
much has been embezzled from the Russian economy by Putin and all of the oligarchs? We're talking hundreds of billions. Here it's 10 grand given to your boyfriend at the time. Where did it come from? I don't know. Nobody asked me. It's that sort of scandal. You think, honestly, really? You're that hard up against it? This is the sort of thing you need? And it's the same with Andrew and his family as well.
Yeah.
The freebies, the flights, that sort of thing. It's like, really? That's what you're selling your soul for?
That's the thing. And the stuff to Ronaldo, his boyfriend, now husband. But it's very extraordinary. So he basically asked Jeffrey Epstein for $10,000. He was paid $10,000. Mandelson in a statement said he was no knowledge of this $10,000. He was a cabinet minister at the time, right? He was a cabinet minister. He was earning a six-figure salary. He already had, he had a multi-million-pound house in Notting Hill because he bought it for $450,000. It was probably already worth about 4 or 5 million. I mean, the idea that this man, his boyfriend, they were living together, he wanted to do some therapy course or something. He had to go and get the money for it from this billionaire. This is weird. I mean, this is very, very, very strange behaviour. But again, as you say, Andrew up to his eyeball in this as well. And this leads into Prince Andrew, now ex-Prince Andrew, second woman claiming she was trafficked by Epstein to him. I mean, he's denied, again, like Mandelson, he denied any wrongdoing. The allegations against Andrew are actually much more serious in terms of they actually involve the young girls, the young women, Virginia Giuffre's allegations. Look, I don't know anybody who thinks Prince Andrew absolutely could not possibly have had sex with Virginia Giuffre when she was 17 years old, when she was trafficked by Epstein to him, couldn't possibly have done that and then chosen to pay her along with the Queen's money, 10 million quid years later, so he didn't have to testify about it. I don't know, I mean, I'm sorry, none of that. We're not stupid, we're not. But here's the thing.
He is.
There is that thing. As former Royal Protection Chief Di Davies points out, anything like that, where Prince Andrew was, who he was meeting, this sort of gone up the chain of command. There's no way that senior police weren't told. There's no way that senior staff in Buckingham Palace, the Queen's principal private secretary at the time, would have been given this information. Now, was she protected from it? Highly likely. It seems to me that King Charles, I'm his prince, he would have known quite a lot. And I think that certainly once he was king, he was made it absolutely clear, I want this guy out of royal life. And he did it just in time, I would think. Do you think he's done enough to save the royal family over this?
Oh, to save the royal family, I don't think that this will be the thing that brings down the royal family. I think that a huge amount of damage has been done to the royal family. I think he's acted, he's done what he could. And I suppose the difficulty is, had it happened earlier, before we actually reached this sort of moment where the files were being released and more things were coming out, well, then people would have gone, hang on, why did you jump the gun slightly? So actually, I do feel that within the information that we suspect that he's received at certain points in time, I think he's probably done the right thing. I mean, let's be clear, he has thrown his brother to the wolves, which is what everybody seems to think that his brother deserves. So I don't think you could say he could do much more, and he only became king at a certain point.
Yeah, and I do think, it's quite clear that Prince William is also very much, and this guy is a damage to the firm. We look after the firm, number one, and he's got to go. You can see the way that the cold shoulder, was it the scarfing? Is it Prince William does the scarfing? He's always adjusting his scarf as a way of avoiding people. It's just the whole thing. And Fergie, again, just everything she does or says, writes, is just tacky. Beyond belief, absolutely extraordinary. Let's come back to more politics here, because I do want to hear from you. Do get in touch, 0344 499 1000. Should either or both of these men be forced to testify before Congress? Certainly Keir Starmer has apparently said, well, absolutely, that Prince Andrew, as was, should testify. Well, shouldn't Lord Mandelson as well? He's your big mate. Do give us a call on that, 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch on X at Talk TV. Calls to charge the national rate. Text cost £1, standard network rate message. But any of your thoughts on all of this, particularly what Di Davies had to say, was he did not pull his punches, that's for sure. Let's talk about what's going on back home. We've got the Gorton and Denton by-election. It's really interesting. I think we've got all the main candidates now. Reform is the first to be announced, of course. We know it's not Andy Burnham as a Labour candidate. It's going to be an interesting battle, but it was a very interesting piece by Dan Hodges in the Mail on Sunday yesterday about basically how actually neither Reform nor the Greens really want to win this seat. They want the other to win the seat, but the Labour people are desperate for Labour to lose the seat because they want that as the moment for them to oust Keir Starmer, and they're willing to lose the Gorton and Denton by-election, basically to keep the mayoralty Andy Burnham in Manchester, but also as the catalyst for dumping Keir Starmer, because they believe that Keir Starmer is going to be the big problem when it comes to them in the next election. But are they right, given the latest polls suggest that actually it could well be that Keir Starmer would be more popular than some of the other options?
Well, that's been the
like
case.
West Streeting.
Yeah, that's been the case for a long time, actually. Careful what you wish for, because actually whoever is the leader of the Labour Party, it doesn't matter, because you've still got the same set of MPs, and they're as much a part of the problem as the leader is. And when it comes to this particular by-election, look, ultimately it was Keir Starmer's decision, if Labour are going to lose, to throw this by-election, because he will have decided that is a better outcome than having the insurgent challenger. So then people saying, oh, well, we hope that he loses, that Labour loses the by-election, because that'll let us force out Starmer. Starmer, I suspect, is probably, he is not a complete half.
He's priced that in.
He will have weighed that up and gone, look, much better to have this guy outside than in. When it comes to the other parties, though, the insurgent parties, it's curious. Look, I've said it before about Reform. I think that there's a real danger that they do go for too many people who are, let's say, big on Twitter, very good at, communicating, very good at, presenting themselves, commentators, journalists, that sort of person, rather than people who can actually get into government and get things done on day one. Now, I understand why at a by-election you might throw that as an idea out, and you might go, well, actually, what we want is a personality, because we're trying to sort of smash through and create a story.
There's his back.
That is, I think, a bit of a risk. The Green Party, look, who knows why the Green Party are doing that? It's because they're left-wing and they're not Labour.
Why didn't Zach Polanski? Why didn't he want to go for it? He's not an MP. He's a member of the London Assembly.
I suspect because actually Zach Polanski, and I did think that he should run, especially if Burnham had run. I thought he's got nothing to lose. If he knocks Burnham out of the thing, that's a big win. If he runs them close, that's a big thing. But ultimately, I just think it's because the more exposure Zach Polanski gets to the real world that's not TikTok, actually I think people go, oh, you're a bit of a half-wit, aren't you?
The soft-soaping interviewer, and I'm actually, I know she gets a lot of grief, but Laura Kunzberg, as an interviewer, I think she's actually very, very good.
That's why the Corbynistas didn't like her,
That's why they didn't like her. But actually, that soft-soap interview she did with Zach Polanski was, I'm sorry, it was embarrassing. It really, really was. And there's so much on, drugs and drinks. It was such a metropolitan concern, as opposed to, you are, it was like one question, but, you're basically cozying up with anti-Semitic, pro-Gaza, terrorist supporting organisations to get you, and doing sectarian voting, which I'm sorry, I'm pretty sure was something we're supposed to be opposed to. And it is extraordinary because in these two parts of this by-election, I think it's in Denton where you're basically looking at white working class voters, and that where Reform are likely to do very well. And in Gorton, you're looking half of it students and half of it is Muslims. And Greens are basically going for the that's their target. It's students and getting together with the Muslim vote. Now, the Muslim Vote organisation has said they're going to suggest the Muslims vote for the Greens. And we do have this sectarian voting, that whole families, whole streets. I know someone who stood for respect, and she was told, you go to the local imam. I did not agree with her politics. You're going to go to the local imam and basically get his approval, and then he will tell everyone who to vote for. Sorry, that is not how things fly in this country. It shouldn't be.
It's not. But it is how things
the Greens, everyone keeps thinking they're cuddly. For a start, they are totalitarian, autocratic, anti-liberal, cave-dwelling. They want to control our lives, send us back to the Dark Ages. They're completely bonkers on climate change nonsense, but also they are cozying up with some very, very dangerous dark forces of Islamist extremist leadership of some Muslim communities. And I'm sorry, that is very serious issue.
But Labour have done that for decades.
True.
Actually, Labour have done that for decades. And if we're being completely honest here, rather too many Conservatives have turned a blind eye to the activities of certain people in their communities because it suited them as well. And I'm sorry, this simply comes from a lack of understanding. And this is the great irony of all of it. The multiculturalists, the open borders, oh, everybody's welcome here and we love it. Are we actually interested in finding out about these people? No, obviously not. We're not going to, how many of these people ever learnt Urdu or Polish or any of these languages? No, they're not interested because as long as it suits them in the short term. That's always the problem with British politics. It's short-termism, and they think, look, if this person gets my guy into office, that's fine. But what I would also say...
Chickens are very much coming home to roost.
You talked to Bear about sectarian politics, and it is... If that happens in one direction, well, it will happen the other direction. White working-class people are already going to reform. White middle-class people are going to reform. Lots of people are going to reform because they're fed up with the direction of travel. And I know it's strange. I know a lot of people are really not happy about it, but the country is still majority white. And if you decide you're going to balkanise politics on ethnic lines, I don't think people like that are going to like the outcome because people will then vote as a bloc.
But I don't understand, like, what does someone, because they've got brown skin or black skin, what are their concerns that are different from someone who's got white skin? Well, don't all people care about whether or not they've got a decent school, whether there's rubbish on the streets, the bins are collected, whether they can get an NHS appointment for their grandmother, whether they can get housing. I mean, those should be things that are. I don't see what on earth the pigmentation in your skin has got to do with any of those issues.
This is part of the issue, and this is my own fault for saying ethnic
that's a religious issue.
That's my own fault for saying ethnic lines, but a lot of it is ethnic because it's Pakistani bloc or Bangladeshi bloc. But actually, when you talk to a lot of people from other ethnic groups, especially people who came here in the 60s and 70s, Caribbeans, West Indians, people from East Africa, for instance, they tend to be a lot more socially conservative and more inclined to vote for more right-leaning parties because they've been through the whole thing of, well, look, I came to Britain for a certain set of reasons. It wasn't just economic. A lot of it was because I quite liked the culture, quite liked the idea of being part of this society.
Safe, free.
I came, I integrated, I worked, I paid my taxes, and now I'm told I should vote a certain way because of this rather than who I am. There's a large degree of irritation, I think, amongst those people. A lot of those people will vote Reform, as, right now, a lot of them have voted Conservative.
Well, it's like the percentage of people who've ethnic minorities who voted for Brexit.
But when it comes to, certainly, Islamism in the north of England, and we should stop pretending that it is not a mainstream ideology now in certain parts of England, they will vote according to what exactly, they will vote according to, as you say, what the local community leader says. And that, of course, often means
self-appointed, they're the imams, and again, often in mosques where they host some very, very extreme people. Just finally, I've got to do this again because it just annoys the hell out of me. The Grammys, the usual woke, virtually silly nonsense we expect from celebrities. They were all wearing, F-U-C-K about ICE, the immigration and customs agents who were basically going around, according to, mandated by government, mandated by the American people in the election only a year ago, that they would go around and deport people who entered the country illegally and then committed crimes. That's literally what they're doing. Didn't used to be controversial, that, to anyone, but of course it is to a bunch of celebs who live behind lovely, lovely big gates and fences in their beautiful multi-million-pound homes. But this is what Billie Eilish who said when she accepted her gong for the best song of the year at the Grammys.
No one is illegal on stolen land. And I feel like we just need to keep fighting and speaking up and protesting, and our voices really do matter, and the people matter, and I say sorry.
Yeah, that blank is when she's saying rude words because she's so stunning and brave. Isn't she clever? Sweetheart, your voice doesn't matter. What you're saying doesn't matter. You're talking abject nonsense about something you know nothing about. Again, this whole idea of America is stolen land because the Native Americans were there first. I mean, someone was somewhere everywhere. I mean, it's genuine, utter nonsense. By the way, life was perfect before the Westerns arrived. Absolutely. But no, in no way were Native Americans, tribes killing each other on. No, it was all perfect. This patronising attitude towards anyone who's not white-skinned, I mean, it's utter nonsense. But also, no one's illegal. Yeah, no, you are. No, if you enter a country you don't live in without a visa that's legal, you're illegal. I mean, but maybe she feels the same way about her own home. No one's illegal. The land your Malibu beachfront home is on is stolen land, sweetheart. So if I choose to just wander in, I just break into America and I choose to just wander into your home, I'm not illegal. Can you put the coffee on because I'm on my way?
I'm very unapologetic about this. I'm not even American. I believe that the colonisation of the Americas by Europeans was probably one of, if not the top 3 great civilizational acts in history. Because I'm sorry, if you take a cursory look at how these people behave to each other, as you say, stolen land. Native Americans were going around slaughtering each other for the land anyway. And did we all forget about what the Spanish found in Central America and Latin America? What the pyramids were for, being used for there? Come on. Like, these people were savages, and it was a massive net benefit that, whatever you want to say about Christianity or anything like that, that was a hell of a lot better than what they had going on before there. It was a great civilizing mission, and if that's
not going to sacrifice our children.
As a basic sort of, or sacrifice other people's, specifically going to capture other people, or flaying your father-in-law or something like that, because the sun god demands it. Like, come on.
Just saying, I know, exactly. Billie Eilish, you're an idiot. Carry on. 11:27 is the time. Going to take a quick break. Then we're going to take your calls. Lots of top guests coming up and lots more to talk about. This is Talk.
DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. So just going to give you some breaking news. A man in his 60s, understood to be suspended Labour MP Dan Norris, has been further arrested on suspicion of rape, sexual assault, voyeurism and upskirting. This is a statement from Avon and Somerset Police. Dan Norris, if you recall, he's an MP for North East Somerset and Hanham. Isn't that Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's old seat? Wasn't he North East Somerset? But he was arrested last April. April last year, previously, on some similar allegations regarding, including also child sex offences as well. But we'll keep you updated on that. An extraordinary development there. Obviously, be careful to curtail your conversations online on such subjects, bearing in mind no charges have been brought, and even if charges are brought, someone is innocent until the end of any court proceedings. So please just remind everyone of that. We have these rules for a reason, and they are good for all of us, I would suggest. Also, just other breaking news, Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservatives, has said that there needs to be a full investigation by the government into Mandelson's links to Jeffrey Epstein. She called for him to be removed from the House of Lords, which does require an Act of Parliament. Well, let's get your calls, 0344 499 1000. Robert is in Hertfordshire. Hello, Robert, what do you want to say?
Yeah, good morning. Another word that I'm beginning to hate in the English language is alleged. Alleged. I hate, whenever it comes up, I hate it, alleged. I know you have to be careful, and I understand that, but what we're talking about is child abuse with millionaires. It's no different to the Asian grooming gangs. There's no difference at all. It's child abuse.
It's just in fancier homes, that's all.
Yeah, and the thing is, if they can get away with it, millionaires, then why can't the Pakistani grooming gangs? You can't jump up and down and bump into wardrobes because, just prosecuting them. As far as Mandelson's concerned, they're saying he's got a lot of friends. No, they ain't. They're terrified of him. He is the Dark Lord. Yeah. He is the Dark Lord. What they need to do is get him in the police cell and say, right, grass all your mates up, then nick them, and nick a lot of them together. Take his lordship away from him. And as far as the rest of the royal family concerned, listen, the Queen knew. And she's gone right down. I'm sorry, because I love the Queen, but she's gone right down in my estimation. I can't believe...
I find it... I mean, I can understand them being able to protect her, but I think you don't have a situation with your senior staff where they're not telling you stuff that you should know. And she, by all accounts, authorised this payment to Virginia Giuffre. That money was hers. I'm like you, I find it very hard to believe that she didn't have at least some knowledge of what was going on, what the allegations were.
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, they're all caught up in it, and the fit, like I said to you, there's no difference between what's going on there and the Asian grooming. There's no difference.
Yep.
If I was a left winger, that would be my argument.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Robert, you make a very fair point. Thank you for that. Gareth's in Lincolnshire. Hello, Gareth. You want to talk about, we're just having a bit of a rant about Billie Eilish, weren't we, and these virtue-signaling celebrities. What do you want to say?
Morning, Julia.
Morning.
Yes, basically, it's very simple. It was because of the continent of North America had no borders that allowed all the Europeans to walk in and take over the indigenous lands of the Indians. So if that's what Billie Eilish is wanting, no borders, that's the reason that there are white Europeans in America.
Yeah, well, yeah, basically, if you want it to be a South American country, then you could do that, and it'll happen within a couple of years.
Oh, absolutely.
But it is bizarre. I mean, there's lots of things that you could be, publicly posturing about. I can almost understand. I think they're idiots, they're ill-educated about Gaza. No mention of Iran, innocent young people, their fans probably, being gunned to death by their own government in their tens of thousands on the streets of Iran. That doesn't bother them, doesn't get a mention. Steer well clear of that one. But they're concerned about people who've entered the country illegally, who have committed serious crimes in America, including child abuse, domestic abuse, violence, rape. And they're supporting their cause at the moment. That's weird, isn't it?
I find it totally bizarre. And all it needs is the application of a little logic and research, and that fact will pop out at you immediately. And stand on stage like a little pop princess and tell me that I'm wrong for wanting border control just flies in the face of common sense.
Exactly. Well, as I say, she wants to leave her Malibu beach house door unlocked and anyone can wander in. That's fine. But otherwise, you're just a hypocrite. Thank you for that, guys. Appreciate that. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking to Baroness Kate Hoey, the independent peer, former Labour MP. Goodness me, you're sounding very much like Lord Manderson at this point, Kate Hoey. We'll talk to her up next about where we are with Manderson, where we are with the Prime Minister, and much more besides. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Talk. This is, as I say, Talk Julia Hartley-Brewer, the home of common sense. 11:38 time. Let's get straight to my next guest, Baroness Kate Hoey. She's an independent peer and former Labour MP. Good morning to you, Kate.
Good morning, Julia.
We've got to talk about Peter Mandelson first of all, because he's a former Labour MP. He's still a peer, although apparently not going to the House of Lords. Should he still be allowed to be a Lord? And also, should the Prime Minister, as advised by Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader now, should there be a full investigation into his links with Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, I think the worst thing that's come out is the fact that when he was a minister in government, he was clearly lobbying or potentially lobbying on behalf of Epstein, and in tax affairs that I'm not even quite sure understand what he actually was lobbying or would have been lobbying about. But this is really going now to a situation where clearly either we've got no decent security forces who understand things and find out, or Keir Starmer knew all of this and should never have appointed him. I mean, it's pretty obvious now that there was a whole record of things, and it's just unbelievable that someone at the top end of the government wasn't able to tell Keir Starmer.
It's untenable that he didn't know. There were serious. I mean, these questions have been over him already. I mean, he, as I've said, he tells 4 lies before breakfast every day. He's already lost 2 jobs simply because of telling lies and misdeeds. I mean, so there's a big question mark now about whether or not, as one of our callers pointed out, he should face charges of misconduct in public office over the clearly sort of if these Epstein files are true, they're not made up. It appears accepting money from somebody who he was actually lobbying on behalf of things like banking bonuses, not declaring that income. He's got form for that over Geoffrey Robertson and that loan for his Notting Hill mansion. I mean, I genuinely don't think he ever knowingly tells the truth.
No, I mean, there was enough known publicly about what he'd done before he was appointed, taking away all of the stuff that we're covering. So really, it's very, very strange that Keir Starmer was prepared to do that, particularly going to the United States, which is such an important...
Yes. Why do you think he did? I mean, because he's done a lot of putting the old band back together. There's a lot of people like the Jonathan Powells and people who worked in the Blair government. There's obviously a sort of, look, we haven't got any talent on our benches, we'll have to bring back the old crowd. There's this, Peter Mandelson appears to have some sort of hold over people. Certainly, he was working closely with Morgan McSweeney, the current Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, who appears to have just made a string of terrible decisions.
Yes, I mean, he seems to have, I think it's because, remember, he only came into politics quite late on, really. He hasn't been there for a long, long time. And it looks like he almost felt he had to go back to those people who were involved in the Tony Blair government. And more and more, you just feel that he's not been his own person. Somebody somewhere is behind him, and in terms of the whole, it just doesn't look that we've got a Prime Minister actually who's really, really in charge.
No, certainly. I mean, that's the thing. I've said for a long time, he's an empty suit, doesn't appear to believe in anything. That's why we get all these U-turns. Talk of another U-turn. I don't know what we're up to now, 13, 14, 48, who knows. But even Labour MPs are now calling for him to scrap plans to put asylum seekers, not into camps, not into houses of multiple occupancy, but into council homes. So literally, we're going to build council homes and then put illegal arrivals into them rather than local families who are desperate for decent, affordable accommodation. I mean, why anyone thought this was a good idea is beyond me anyway. But as soon as we know Labour backbenchers start getting uppity about something, he's going to be forced to.
I'm not surprised, because a lot of the casework that most MPs have, and particularly in areas where Labour might be representing, is about housing, is about shortage of housing, is about families who've been waiting for a very long time in very overcrowded situations. And now, if they actually see that when a new council house is being built, that they're not even going to have a chance of being given that or allocated that, and that it's going to someone who's only been in the country a very short time. I mean, I've always
there's no right to be here.
No, exactly. I've always thought that you've got to, you work your way up. I started off living in a little tiny bedsit, and people work their way up, and to allocate somebody who's not legally here even is just, I think, is so outrageous that will have to be a U-turn. But then the military camps are a problem too, because they're so many people, and my solution on that is that if they're still illegally in the country because they haven't yet been allocated any kind of status, then they should be locked in. I mean, those gates should be locked.
No, I don't think the human rights lawyers would like that, Kate. I don't think that's allowed. But that's the madness of it, isn't it? It's very interesting. You mentioned the camps. I mean, there's been every single Sunday there's a protest at Crowborough in East Sussex where some of those asylum seekers were moved in, the illegal migrants, under cover of darkness in vans. But apparently, minister documents show they feared riots at that army base and other army bases if they move in large numbers of migrants. Again, what a low opinion they have of the British people. But here's the thing, maybe you should wonder why people are genuinely worried.
Yes, it's kind of blaming the public for a decision that's been taken by government without any consultation with those local people. And I just find, British people do not riot. Country people particularly do not riot normally. I mean, riot is a very, emotive word. I think what we will see is very, very many protests, particularly from women who feel that their children are going to be not very safe wandering around with men who have, come from a different culture, who have a different attitude to women. It's very clearly, bound to lead to issues that are problems. And government again has to accept that the real issue here is why are these people being allowed, once they come in, not to be actually put straight on a plane and sent back, particularly those where we know where they've come from.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's the question everyone really wants to know the answer to, isn't it? I mean, we must talk about some of these candidates that are, the council elections and the like. And we've got a candidate, a Labour candidate, who says that Muslims shouldn't be friends with Jews. We've got a Labour MP, by the way, who is sitting in a council flat in Tower Hamlets. We've got the Gorton and Denton by-election, which is basically going to be a sort of a culture wars battle, with the Greens being blatantly going for the Muslim vote. There shouldn't be any such thing as a Muslim vote, a white vote, black. Shouldn't be anything like that in a country where we have the community cohesion we're told we must crave, and Reform are going for a very different vote. I mean, things are going horribly wrong when our country is being divided along those lines, aren't they?
Well, we are seeing a much greater division now in constituencies where there's very high proportion of Muslim people living, who seem to not want, many of them, to integrate in any way whatsoever, and they're being led by mullahs and by leaders who are not interested in them becoming what I would call true British citizens. They just want them to be separated out, to still keep to all their cultural way of behaving, and it's not acceptable. And I feel very sorry for the people of that constituency, because they are going to be absolutely flooded with leaflets and people knocking on their doors. And I think a lot of them will just say, not quite cursing it, but saying, go away, we're not going to vote for anybody. I think there is worry about that, and that's bad for democracy.
Could be very understandable. Just finally, the Labour woes, Keir Starmer, total humiliation, kowtowing off in China, absolutely got nothing in return worth having. He's back, but of course he's still got the ongoing issues of leadership rivals around him. Lots of talk in the papers the weekend. Angela Rayner, his former Deputy Prime Minister, who claims to be big mates with still since she had to resign, that she's got a £1 million war chest to fight to be, well, not to put in her oar in with either Andy Burnham or Wes Streeting or anyone else, but to go for it herself. How do you rate her chances of a Labour leadership challenge and a win?
Well, I think Angela Rayner would certainly be the candidate of the left, and even the central left, if you can define it like that. She's clearly making it very clear that she wants to be the leader. But I think, whatever happens, Keir Starmer has to go in the interest of the country, not just in the interest of the Labour Party. I mean, it really is getting to be ridiculous.
Yeah, but if it's going to be Ed Miliband, I'm thinking we stick with Starmer.
Well,
I'm just saying.
We don't want an Ed Miliband zealot, no. But we do want someone who actually is showing that they care about our country more than they care about countries. I mean, the China thing was just outrageous.
I can't see a greater embarrassment for us on the world stage, short of him falling down the plane steps and and his trousers splitting. I mean, it was that bad. Really good to talk to you, Baroness Kate Hoey, independent peer, former Labour MP. Going to take a quick break. Up next, we are going to be talking about there's a pro-Palestinian marches, a pro-Ayatollahs who shoot tens of thousands of young people marches now. What is going on our streets? This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 11:52 is the time. Let's welcome Dr. Alan Mendoza to the show. He's Executive Director at the Henry Jackson Society. He is also now Reform UK's Chief Advisor on Global Affairs. Good morning to you, Alan.
Hello, Julia.
Thank you so much for joining us. Well, I want to talk about Iran. Not interestingly being talked about at the Grammys last night. They were all far too happy, sort of just defending foreign criminals on US soil. Not really that bothered about what's happening to the thousands of innocent people on the streets of Iran who are getting shot dead by their own government. Where are we with Iran? Are the protests still going on? And is any of the talk that Donald Trump is, his sabre rattling at Iran over nuclear deals, is any of that at all related to saving those people from being killed?
Well, it's a really good question, Julia. So the protests themselves have somewhat died down now, unfortunately, because of the overwhelming force used by the regime. I mean, some estimates have it hitting close to 40,000 people killed in a very short period of time by their own government. I mean, this is an extraordinary death toll. Even if that wasn't the toll, we know that thousands have been killed.
Tens of thousands.
And it's appalling. It's absolutely appalling. Now, the question is, what is Donald Trump doing? He's moved all this force to the region. He's got aircraft carriers, he's got planes, he's got missiles. He's got he's got all sorts of abilities if he wants to do that to move things out. But we've heard rumours that there's going to be some deal worked out now. Well, your guess is as good as mine as to what that deal would look like. If it isn't an absolute, number one, destruction of the nuclear program, promise never to start it again, and of course we know they lie and cheat, so how does that work in practice? If that's not on the table, if number two, they don't promise to stop killing their people, which they will do because that's what they've done so far, I'm struggling
does
to
it
understand
have?
what deal there will be.
Well, again, but you can't remember. I mean, again, there's the failings. A brilliant deal that he did over Gaza and got the hostages back. All credit to Donald Trump for that. But the failings of a lot of these deals, like Hamas still in charge, wanting to be the police force for Gaza, not quite what the deal was, and these things sort of slipping away. But this is it. We've got a lot of saber rattling from Donald Trump. You know, my big beautiful armada, and we've got saber rattling from the Ayatollah and his representatives back. Is there any room for manoeuvre there? I mean, they know in Iran that they have to keep nuclear weapons. But I first think what a lot of us find strange, thought Donald Trump claimed that last year he destroyed Iran's nuclear capability, but clearly he didn't.
Well, here's the thing. So he would have destroyed the capability in the sense of having pushed it back from any imminence.
Yeah.
But Iran would have immediately gone, right, let's start again. And the trouble is you can't unlearn what's been learned.
Yeah.
So
and we think they'd actually removed some uranium. The uranium, in the days before the bombing of that mountain.
Yeah, but we're 6 months on. So here's the point: is 6 months on with a committed regime that wants to develop nuclear weapons. It's going to have pumped a lot into it. So the reality is, until you remove the regime, you're always going to have to do the so-called the mowing the grass theory, which is the grass gets tall, you mow it, with air raids, whatever, and then you've got to come back in and do it again and again and again and again. Because the reality is this regime will not stop. It will keep on trying to develop nuclear weapons until it gets one, or until it gets its way in other ways. So the essential problem is the regime. It's always been the regime. There's a golden opportunity to remove the regime. President Trump, please remove the regime.
Yeah, but that's the thing. And they've made so many threats to their neighbours, to Israel, to America, to Britain. I mean, it'd be totally justifiable. I've got no issue with that. Whether the Russians or the Chinese agree with it, I think it's neither here nor there. But this is the thing. A lot of people say, well, what's it got to do with us? They want a nuclear weapon to protect themselves. Like, no, and they've threatened there'll be a regional war. Every other Arab state is absolutely thrilled when Israel in the past and then America have basically taken out their nuclear capability. They are the problem in the Middle East. They are the biggest issue, basically funding terrorist groups around the whole of the Middle East, sending them to Europe and elsewhere. They are a threat to our allies, to us, and to their own people. I mean, what's not to like? But again, no mention from the celebrities in America.
Well, they're not going to pay any attention to this because it doesn't hit their buzzwords, which is, if it's got Trump or Israel in it, those are the only things they're interested in pushing on that basis. But rarely has a cause come to mind that has more effectively married a strategic and moral reason for doing action. And you were quite right to point out this would transform the region. You remove this regime, all the Arab states will be delighted. You have, Israel will be delighted. Our sort of alliance system, broader alliance system, would be delighted. Yeah. We'd have no nuclear threat. We'd have no terrorist threat. It would be a transformative moment, and it would actually damage the Chinese and the Russians because it's one of their allies. Yeah. And the Chinese have been engaged in the oil.
Part of their axis of evil. And yet here we are, even though it's in everyone's interest, particularly those poor innocent people just wanting to live in a free democracy in their own country. Yet on the streets of London, yet again, the pro-Palestinian march, this became a pro-Iranian mullah march on Saturday, with people carrying the Iranian regime flag. People doing Nazi salutes, people with placards supporting the Ayatollah. I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowing that people could be marching in favour of an Islamist fundamentalist regime that wants everyone in Britain to be dead, and America and Israel, and is shooting its own people.
Well, it is mind-blowing, but unfortunately, here we are. Here we are in 2026 when it's happening. And look, we've known, Julia, haven't we, for some time that this has been on the cards. We've known what these people are really about. They weren't about anything to do with pro-Palestinianism. They are about trying to destroy the West, including this country. Yeah. We have fifth columnists in this country who want to destroy our society, our culture, our way of life. And they will seize on any tool, including the Ayatollah, in order to do it. We know where their loyalties are. We know where our loyalties are. It's about time we took out the trash, frankly, and started clearing these people from this country.
Dr. Ellen Mendoza, thank you indeed for that. Benedict Spence, listening to all of that.
I mean, yes, the continuation of these protests in favour of organisations, groups, regimes around the world that want to do us harm, want to do our allies harm, is disgraceful. And I think, we've all known this, sort of from the beginning, that this was not, when it started off being about Gaza, it was not really about Gaza. Gaza was just a wonderful excuse for lots of bigotry that has slowly built up in this country. It was suddenly given away to vent, and it's just good old-fashioned anti-Semitism. It's never gone away. But I think the whole thing about Iran and the Ayatollah has just really, they've overshot. They've revealed themselves.
If it
wasn't already obvious, when you're then supporting a regime that I suspect, when all is said and done, we will have found that the Ayatollah's forces have killed as many, if not more, civilians in Iran than Israel killed in Gaza.
In a matter of days.
Yeah, in a matter of days. I suspect we will find that out, and then you'll find out just how serious these people are about peace in the region.
Still waiting for that UN condemnation.
Oh,
I mean, it's the hypocrisy.
It's going around rattling for money.
It knows no bounds. It really is quite extraordinary. We've had a statement from the Labour Party on Lord Manderson. We've also had a statement from Kemi Badenoch as well. I'm going to bring those to you in just a couple of moments after the latest news headlines. We're going to be talking to, former Press Secretary to the Queen, Dickie Arbiter, to find out what he thinks. Well, who would have known what about Prince Andrew's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, what he was up to, and what he would have known about what Jeffrey Epstein was doing, and whether or not he should actually face charges himself? This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good afternoon to you. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. It's 2 minutes past midday. Whether you are listening on DAB Plus Radio or your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or on your connection device, thank you so much for joining me. We've been on since 10. If you've missed anything from the show, do take a look at my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. The whole show will be on there. Lots of clips, and then you can catch up on anything you've missed. If you hit subscribe, you never have to miss a thing. We're all the way until 1 o'clock. Lots more top guests, lots more to talk about. More on Jeffrey Epstein and, those files and what the implications are for the artist formerly known as Prince Andrew and indeed the man who used to be our man in Washington, Lord Mandelson. Going to talk about Angela Rayner's £1 million war chest, apparently part of a rumoured leadership plot to oust Keir Starmer. Will he last past the local elections? And why the countryside needs to be made less white. It's a natural thing. It's an actual thing. We're going to be talking about that. Lots more top guests coming. Benedict Spence still with me as well. I'm including you among the top guests. I want to make that clear.
Oh, lovely.
Conservative commentator, top guest and Benedict Spence coming. Good afternoon to you.
That was short-lived.
Yeah, I mean, I can't be too nice to you for too long. You know, it would make you uncomfortable.
Makes everybody uncomfortable.
Well, yes.
Listeners, it's awful.
So let me just read you. Kemi Badenoch, we're talking about Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, where do we even start? There's so much to talk about in terms of the allegations involving the two Brits whose names have most come up. Small point of a whole load of American names, multi-millionaires, politicians, you name it. But the focus has been here on Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and as he is still, Lord Manderson. But the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, has said the government should launch a full investigation into Manderson's links to Jeffrey Epstein. She's called for him to be removed from the House of Lords. This, we understand, involves an Act of Parliament. I'm pretty sure you could do that quite quickly. Yeah. She said the investigation should look into how he ever came to be appointed at all, given the revelations. And what the allegations appear to show, she says, is corruption in public office. I think that if that is something to be proven to be the case, then all the right steps need to be taken. There was not proper vetting of his appointment as the UK ambassador to the USA. This massively links to, frankly, you know, poor judgment in number 10 by Keir Starmer, ultimately. But also the Labour Party has issued a statement on Lord Manderson, who last night resigned his membership of the Labour Party. He was already no longer sitting in the Lords, but again, keeps his peerage. Said, it is right that Peter Manderson is no longer a member of the Labour Party. Disciplinary action was underway prior to his resignation, so he jumped before he could be pushed. Jeffrey Epstein's heinous crimes destroyed the lives of so many women and girls, and our thoughts remain with his victims. Well, yeah, that was something that Peter Manderson didn't think about until he sort of had to do a second interview, didn't he, a few weeks ago, to say, oh, no, I do care about the victims. Nothing to do with me, Gov, was his previous stance. But when it comes to both men, what the allegations against Peter Manderson are very different. It's more about money. $75,000 appearing in your account. You don't have any recollection of it. $10,000 to your lover at the time, now husband. This photo of him in his pants. Apparently, it's now been verified. This was taken in Jeffrey Epstein's Paris apartment. Prince Andrew, as was Prince Andrew, very different allegations. A second woman claiming she was trafficked to him for sex after Virginia Giuffre. He paid $10 million to the woman who previously claimed it, now sadly dead. A horrible photo of him kneeling over a very slight girl on the ground, which was, again, apparently taken in an Epstein home. Yeah. His and Fergie's emails, the money grubbing, and all of this, by the way, pretty much all this after Jeffrey Epstein had been convicted of soliciting a 14-year-old for prostitution. Do you think that there, just briefly, Benedict, but do you think there will eventually be some sort of criminal action taken against either of these men?
Oh, against either of these men, I don't know. It's really hard to say, simply because there hasn't been quite enough yet. You don't know what else there is to come. But what I would say is the steady drip feed of information, admittedly over the years, does suggest that it could get to that point. I wouldn't be surprised. I just wouldn't want to hang my hat on it right now.
OK. Well, let's talk to another guest now, very much particularly on the lines of talking about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, as he now is, having been stripped of his titles and his HRH, and that is Dickie Arbiter, former press secretary to the late Queen Elizabeth and a former royal journalist as well. Very good afternoon to you, Dickie.
Hello, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. Just suppose your first thoughts, your reaction to all of this vast avalanche of news and tranche of documents that we've seen, in particular in relation to Andrew.
Well, first reaction, it beggars belief, doesn't it? You know, it's all been trickling out, but this whole tranche of stuff that was released on Friday, it really is beyond comprehension. And obviously the Sunday's had a lot. There's more coming out now. Interesting, Benedict saying about difficult to know whether to prosecute Andrew, because so far we don't know what crime he has committed, which is why I suppose there's a call for the Met Police to start to investigate. But it does make one wonder how much more is to come out, how much more can come out. There's 2.5 million documents still being withheld for some unknown reason that only the Justice Department in the States know. And they're not going to tell us, are they? No. But what else will come out? I suppose you guys are going to be sifting forever and a day.
Well, it does seem, you know, drip, 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 more and more coming out about both men. Because a lot of people making the point, hold on a minute, what about stuff about Donald Trump? What about stuff about allegations of Bill Gates or Elon Musk? I mean, again, all these men are saying, Richard Branson's in the files. All these men, by the way, are all saying, hey, I'm cleared.
You've forgotten Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton, of course, they're all saying, like, no, I'm exonerated by this. There's nothing in there. Look, I haven't read every single document. Of course I haven't. I don't think anyone has. There's more to come out. There is just this whole stench of this idea that, like, even if someone did nothing ostensibly wrong or certainly any crime, that you were still hanging around with a guy and having contact with a guy who there was a lot of dirty smell about. And after his conviction in the mid-2000s for soliciting a 14-year-old girl for sex, a clear criminal record. Now, we know that Andrew got into a whole load of mess when he did that Newsnight interview 6 years ago now, where he was, talked himself into thinking that he was so clever, he was going to basically put everything to rest, whereas actually he just opened a can of worms. There were so many things that he said that were proven to be questionable at best and clearly untrue at worst. He ended up paying 10 million quid with the Queen's financial help, the late Queen's financial help, to Virginia Giuffre, a woman he claims he certainly didn't have sex with and indeed had never even met. A second woman saying that she was trafficked for sex to him. Again, he will be denying these allegations. He's already lost his HOH, he's lost the Prince title, he's lost his big fancy home, he's out in the cold, he can't go to Christmas lunch with the family. King Charles and Prince William have made it really clear, mate, you're on your own. Was that the right thing for Charles to have done? Should it have happened sooner under the late Queen?
Well, there are a lot of arguments about that. What you've got to look at, yes, the late Queen was head of state and she always put duty first. But at the end of the day, she was also sort of trying to get the right and right the wrong with her son. And that's the key to it. He
was her favourite.
Sorry?
He was her favourite. Could he do no wrong in her eyes?
Well, as far as all the children were concerned, they couldn't do any wrong. Andrew has always been labelled the favourite. He was the firstborn in the second family, where the Queen was able to spend more time with him and Edward than she was able to do with Charles and Anne all those years ago. But yeah, I suppose at the end of the day, he was a bit of a favourite, but she was also dealing with her son.
Yeah.
And she was of an age where she didn't want hassle. She had mobility issues. She wasn't in the peak of health. And she left a bit of a ticking time bomb for her son and heir. So you ask, did Charles do the right thing? Yes, he did do the right thing. Should he have done it sooner? Well, there are all sorts of legal implications and complications that probably prevented him from doing it. But he did do it last October. And now the MOD also finally stripped him of his vice admiralship. So what he is, he's gone back to his substantive rank. And all he is now is Commander Andrew Mountbatten Windsor retired, Royal Navy retired.
Yeah, I mean, again, give all credit to him. And, Prince Harry, we can slag them off. They did actually serve their country in the military, and all credit to them for that. But again, Andrew had a lot of other jobs, like UK trade envoy, lots of question marks about what he was, whether he was doing a lot of this actually for his own personal gain and his friends' gains, and then multi-millionaires. He never met a dodgy billionaire he didn't like. Same, I would say, for Peter Mandelson as well. But a little bit earlier, we spoke to Di Davies, used to be head of Royal Protection, and he said there need to be investigations, of his trade envoy role, of the security services, what they knew, the vetting that went on, certainly went on. The palace, what did they know? But also, what did his Royal Protection Squad know? Because you will know how things go up the list. He was saying basically, I would have gone to a senior figure. It would have gone to the then Queen's private secretary, principal private secretary. This would have gone up the line. But we know Andrew had Royal Protection officers when he was travelling to go and stay in the home of Epstein. Once he was already convicted of these horrific crimes, he'd already pleaded guilty, well, no contest, effectively, to soliciting a 14-year-old girl for prostitution. And we're told by Andrew he wanted to cut off his relationship, but he was a good friend, so he did it in person. I mean, absolute nonsense. But
honourable was the word.
Honourable, that was it. But these Royal Protection officers would have had to be with him. They were there. By all accounts, everyone who went to either the island or to his Epstein's New York home said that there were just like numerous 14 clearly underage girls wandering around. He didn't have a kid himself. It was clearly questionable. Surely they would have gone, whoop, whoop, flag this up to someone higher. It would have gone all the way up the line. It would have gone to the Queen's senior staff, say, hey, Ma'am, perhaps you need to intervene here. Do you think that's what happened?
Well, you've raised a very interesting point in terms of the protection officers. He would have had them 24/7. And what is interesting is that the Met Police seem to have closed ranks because there hasn't been a whisper about anything about the protection officers. And you have to ask why. Is this why the Met are being asked to reopen investigation, to investigate their own people? We know that they close ranks. We know that there's an element of whitewashing when it comes to investigating their own ranks, unless it's lower down the chain. And they have a lot to answer for. What were the protection officers doing? Did they take note of what was happening? They were there, as you rightly say. They were there every step of the way. Why haven't they been questioned? Why hasn't information come out in what their role was in this whole sorry saga?
Can I ask you whether you, as the former press secretary to the late Queen Elizabeth, were you aware of any rumours or anything at all?
We weren't aware, which is quite interesting. We knew that he was meeting various people and they were dodgy people. We didn't hear much of a whiff in terms of Epstein. Interesting point you made earlier on about money. I think Andrew has always been driven by money, not helped at all by his ex-wife, who is more than driven by money. I mean, she goes through it like water drips from a leaking cup. So, no, it's interesting that we didn't know much that was going on. We knew he was trade ambassador. We knew he sort of slung his golf clubs in the boot of the aircraft so that he could play golf while working, mixing business with pleasure.
I mean, don't lots of people do that, you know, tag on a couple of days.
Yeah, but the taxpayer's not paying for it, are they?
Yeah, yeah. That's the key thing. But actually, do you think a lot of this is just about money? I look certainly with Peter Mandelson. I mean, I'm sorry, I know your area of expertise isn't necessarily that side of the political side of it. But I mean, every time he's been, you know, he's had to resign, it's always basically been involving him with some, you know, very rich men who clearly can help him. I mean, a man who doesn't recollect having $75,000 being put into his bank account over a period of months. I think most of us would notice that. But I think a lot of people are very perplexed by how the royals can be so sort of money grubbing. You think, well, but they live in palaces. They've got entourages. They've got all the security. They've got everything's being paid for. Surely, why do they need so much? Why do they have to go cap in hand to get money from an American billionaire?
Well, you're talking about one person. You're not talking about the whole royal family, because they don't do that. They get money, yes, from donors for their charities, for the charitable work that they do, and it goes.
King Charles gets them when he was a prince in a carrier bag. A little bit questionable.
Well, it goes off in the right direction. But when we talk about money, Fergie was always broke. Fergie and Andrew were living together, and he wasn't unaware of what was going on. And yes, you've got to ask questions. How was he able to buy a very large chalet in Verbier?
Yeah.
How was he able to...
Sold for 10 million in the end, wasn't it?
Something like that, yes. And how was he able to pay off Virginia Giuffre? You know, there are all sorts of questions.
There's no reason for him to have that money. He wasn't paid like for that role as trade envoy, anything like that. He certainly did. You know, he had his military pension. His stipend from the Queen didn't account for that money, and yet there's just all this money sloshing about.
All of it is washing about. Yes, well, I mean, all he got is his Royal Navy pension, is 20,000 quid. That doesn't go very far. That doesn't buy you a chalet in Verbier.
It doesn't.
But no, I mean, the whole thing was money driven, bound to be money driven. And in Andrew's case, money and sex. As we're beginning to discover. Where it all ends remains to be seen.
Should both Andrew and indeed Peter Mandelson, should they be forced to go? Well, should they be encouraged, shall we say? We can't legally force them, and we don't want a situation where Britons would be forced to this, but should they give evidence to Congress or answer questions from the FBI? We know that the FBI have been trying to question Andrew for years.
It's another interesting point you raise. You see, the thing is that Andrew is a foreign national, so if he is questioned, he can't plead the Fifth because he's not American.
Good point.
And if he answers every question, which he's perfectly entitled to do, with a no comment, that already puts not just one big question mark, but a whole battalion of question marks over him. So, and he's not very good at thinking on his feet, as
we've seen that
in Newsnight interview. So it would be a disaster if he did. If you remember, if you cast your mind back, he did say at one stage that he would be prepared to stand up and defend himself, but he was talked out of that because American lawyers would rip into him and he wouldn't survive. So asking him to give evidence, very difficult one. He can't think on his feet. He can't think, period. But he can't think on his feet.
Or sweat, apparently.
it would be an even bigger disaster than Newsnight.
Wow, that'd be worth watching. And given we're still talking about that Newsnight, it's 6 years on. I asked you if you were aware. You say you were not aware. You know, other people, but if you had been made aware, if something had come up the line from the Royal Protection Officers through the ranks, and you were told, look, you know, the Queen's son is going off and staying with this guy who, we're pretty sure, you know, he's been convicted of this paedophile crime. He's definitely dodgy. There's definitely a lot of 14, 15-year-old girls. What would you have done? Who would you have told?
If we had got wind of it, we would have gone to the private secretary, who was the ultimate boss, who would then have conveyed it straight to the late Queen.
And he would have. He would have done that, 100%?
Would have done that in exactly the same way. If I'd been there on this Newsnight interview, I would have walked in front of the cameras and pulled the plug, because no way should it ever have happened.
Yeah.
And he probably got them in there on the pretext that, as far as telling his late mother, that yes, he was doing an interview for Newsnight. It was all about Pitch of the Palace, something innocuous. He certainly wouldn't have told her that it's all about his dealings with Jeffrey Epstein, because even she, at that age, alarm bells would have sounded, and she would have gone down to her private secretary and said, deal with this.
Make it not happen. Fascinating. Always so good to talk to you. Thank you so much, Dickie Arbiter, former press secretary to the late Queen Elizabeth. Benedict Spence, really interesting there. He wasn't aware. If he had been aware, being very clear that, you know, it would have gone up the ranks, and the Queen would have been told, because a lot of people saying, we've had a caller pointing out, and it's something that, you know, a lot of people saying that you don't have to be a Republican or a monarchist. It's irrelevant. You know, should the palace have taken more action? I don't believe for a nanosecond that senior people in the palace, the most senior, were not aware, from what Royal Protection Officers and others were saying, that Prince Andrew at the time was spending time with someone who was very, very questionable and should be steered away. But it does appear that he would get away with anything. There were question marks about his behaviour and what he was up to when he was a UK trade envoy and benefits himself. Is it Kazakhstan that he's never met a billionaire he doesn't like from, you know, Kazakhstan? And there's just lots of questionable things all the time. But whether we just had a very indulgent mother that, you know, the Queen just literally, she just adored him and he could do no wrong. We don't know what happened. But I don't believe for a moment that there weren't senior people who had a clue of what the hell was going on.
Almost certainly. Even if she didn't know all the details, there were people around her. There were people around her in her employ who did know the details and either kept them from her for specific reasons or felt she didn't need to know or whatever. But either way, at the very top of the circus, so to speak, there were people that knew what was going on. Otherwise, a lot of the steps that were taken subsequently wouldn't have been taken. Yeah. And this, I think, is not an unfair thing to say. You're a Republican, I'm a monarchist. This is a failing of our system. If you actually have somebody who is prepared to turn a blind eye for personal reasons, because it's a member of the family, and by definition everybody involved is going to be a member of the family, that's a problem.
But I'm a Republican who, I mean, again, I know a lot of you don't like that, but I am always very straight about my views. I don't give views that just because I think they're popular. I know it's an unpopular view, but I've always had huge admiration for the late Queen. I rather like the current Queen as well, but the late Queen, she seems like a good egg. But she put duty before family again and again and again. Did she on this occasion, or did her staff fear that she would have even put family before duty?
And that's the question there. Was it that the staff felt that this would have been too much of a thing for her to make?
No one wants to tell someone's mum, an elderly lady.
Of course not. Although, having said that, of course, she was pretty consistent throughout her life and being able to take quite difficult decisions. But this is perhaps something, therefore, we need to know. Like, how much was withheld from her because senior officials felt she wouldn't be able to make the right decision? Or, in fact, was she told everything and she has still made decisions with all the facts open to her? And also, what is the process by which, if stuff was withheld from her, by which a senior official can make that judgment? Do they have to sign it off with somebody else? Is there a degree of accountability within the organisation?
I also don't believe that the government didn't know. I mean, there were rumours. I worked at Westminster around this time. There was a lot going around. And again, there's just lots of people go, oh, why don't you write about it? If you haven't got the facts yourself, but you're hearing from people who you know have always been right about stuff before, and you know that their sources are impeccable. That, you know, there was stuff going around. No question. Lots of stuff did make it into the papers, but it's done in a kind of sort of a, can't be legally done for it sort of way. But this is the thing, and again, it's the same about the sort of, okay, we may not have all heard of Jeffrey Epstein back in, 20 odd years ago, but the American public absolutely knew who he was. He was honestly, people would have known who he was, and when Prince Andrew was visiting him, people would have known that was happening.
With the sheer number of allegations against Jeffrey Epstein for all sorts of things beyond simply the sexual abuse allegations and convictions, it is simply inconceivable that our security services would not have known every single detail. And if they know every single detail, then they know how that impacts the royal family.
And then we're also getting into Peter Mandelson and how the hell did Number 10 appoint Peter Mandelson as our trade envoy, as our ambassador to the United States, given his past, and again his close business dealings with China, his history of dishonesty. He lost 2 jobs twice. He lost 2 jobs for lying, and not just lying to the public. Lying. I mean, the first allegation was about getting a loan for his house, lying probably to his mortgage company. I mean, that was the allegation at the time. But certainly lying to the Prime Minister who appointed him both times, and that was Tony Blair and then Gordon Brown. As I said, he lies 4 times before breakfast. It's what he does. Everyone thinks he's so clever. If he's so clever, why does he keep getting caught?
I was going to say, actually, how many Labour premises have there been again? Because there's a good chance that Peter Mandelson has lied to all of them. I was going to say,
he's either related to them or lied to them. No, but this is the thing. I mean, I'm sorry.
That's quite an achievement.
I mean, he didn't speak to me for years and years and years, and then he came on our election night show. But I think because he was just in the building doing other stations, and he probably didn't even know it was me. But he absolutely hates me. It's like, it's mutual, mate. It's mutual. But you can sort of admire the chutzpah on one level, but. If you're hanging out with them, and this defence he gave in an interview recently, but I'm gay, I wouldn't have known about this. Sorry, but you played. So he used to he would literally, there would be, letters sent to editors and broadcasters, don't mention he's gay because it's his personal business. Absolutely, it's not. I couldn't care less. I don't care. Yeah. But he chose to play the gay card as. But obviously, I wasn't involved with 14 and 15-year-old girls being abused because I'm a gay man. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, but if you hung out with someone who did do that, I'm sorry, that makes you just as culpable because you could have. I mean, why were you not there videoing and getting evidence so this guy could be stopped?
Yeah,
you're immoral. He's immoral.
That's it.
He says he didn't see anything.
I think that's when you're into really desperate territory. It's when you know that your cleverness is really, really running out. If actually you're playing that I'm gay, you can't possibly criticise me, Carl, because then it's kind of like, well, we have well and truly scraped the barrel now, and you are on the rungs.
Absolutely. 12:25 is the time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Bearing in mind, you have had a statement from Labour Party saying that it's right that Peter Mandelson is no longer a member of the Labour Party. Disciplinary action was underway prior to his resignation, so he was allowed to go before he was pushed. And obviously their thoughts remain with the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. Kemi Badenoch said there needs to be a proper investigation. Do you think there will be one? Love to hear your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCounts.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Sinks. That's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beers, and I feel
Raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of this desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense. 12:29 is the time. I'm going to get your calls. Just Benedict Spence has just worked something out in the break, though, about Peter Mandelson and his hold on Labour Prime Ministers. And what's the stat you just worked
Peter
out?
Mandelson has been hired by and subsequently gotten rid of by 3 Labour Prime Ministers. To put that into context, that is 43% of all Labour Prime Ministers. Peter Mandelson.
3 out of 7.
He's managed to con into hiring and then have gone, hang on a second, this isn't
You've
great.
lied and you probably need to go.
43%. That is... I mean, that's impressive.
That is, I mean, hired and fired by 43% of Labour Prime Ministers, and all Labour Prime Ministers since 1979.
And who knows? If Angela Rayner comes along and hires him again, he could make it to that sweet 50%. Who knows?
Oh, go on.
I'm rooting for you, Peter.
Just for the
I really
laugh.
am.
It's an amazing stat, though, isn't it? This guy has a hold on people.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Anyway, let's go to the calls. 0344 499 1000. Not surprising, all on Epstein right now. Carl is in Liverpool. Good afternoon to you, Carl.
Good afternoon, Julia.
What do you want to say?
Yeah, well, it's all a bit seedy, isn't it? The whole thing, celebrities, Prince Andrew, it's all... and this is the thing, Julia. If I asked my mum for £10 million, she would ask, where am I spending it and why I need it?
You think?
You know, I think...
Just going down the bingo.
Yeah, and you know what? God loves her and God rest her soul, but I think maybe she knew, maybe she might not have knew everything, but she knew something, because you don't give someone £10 million, Julia, and not ask why and where.
It was clearly what was going to come out in this Virginia Giuffre private prosecution, or this libel case, effectively. It called them sense, but they knew that was going to be so damaging. It was worth that amount of money.
Yeah, and also you don't give someone £10 million who you've never met.
Oh, I come on. Which of us has not given 10 million quid to someone we've never met and certainly not had sex with? Do you just think the whole thing, it just all smells so dodgy?
It really stinks, Julia. And I've had quite a little bit of time on my hands this week between jobs, so I've.
It's only Monday morning, Monday afternoon.
Yeah, it will Monday be, but I work 7 days a week almost. So
fair enough.
And I went down some rabbit holes, and some of these celebrities that are involved in...
Please don't name people that I'm going to have to get legal letters about, please.
Yeah, but Julia, this is the thing. You've only got 2 people in the frame. Obviously, you've got Andrew, Jeffrey Epstein's no longer here, and Ghislaine Maxwell. But there's so many people, celebrities, politicians, and not one of them, no one's been arrested or charged.
No, well, again, Ghislaine Maxwell's legal documents in court filed, I think on Friday, basically claiming that, you know, that some 30 men have basically been given immunity. All the famous names, the politicians, the billionaires, are all saying, you know, I've not done anything wrong. And as lots of the media having to keep pointing out, being mentioned in the Epstein files does not mean you're guilty of anything. You know, Richard Branson pointing out, you know, they did due diligence on this guy and realised this, you know, perfectly nice, friendly emails, but basically avoided him because they just went, and wouldn't accept his money for his charities, which I think is quite a giveaway. Yeah, the whole thing just stinks. It just stinks. Yep. There's a lot of things that we don't know that might come out. I hope they come out. I think there's lots more to come out. Yeah. Carl, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. You get back to work 7 days a week. Nigel is in... Someone's got to do some work. No one else is working these days. Everyone's on the benefits.
I'm certainly not.
Yeah, he's not, yeah.
Go on, say the thought out loud.
No, it's Anna. Nigel is in London. He's on the line. Afternoon to you, Nigel.
Good afternoon. I've just accepted £10 million from my neighbour. He says just take it and enjoy it. So it's very kind to get the money.
I know, it happens. Oh, did he a few years ago send you $75,000, but you just forgot about it?
I forgot all about that.
I know. It keeps happening to me. The amount of times I check, I go to the cash point, there's way more in than I thought.
I know. Well, look, I've got 3 points to make about Mandelson and Andrew Mountbatten, whatever I am, Windsor. And these are 3 really important points. Yeah. The first point is the US government has released all these documents, which, if it was the UK government, they would never release them. That's really important. The US will release everything. The UK will release nothing. It's not in the public interest, all that nonsense. That's the first point. The second point is there is no appetite for the police to, I think, launch an investigation into Mandelson and or Andrew, because the ramifications and the big poo ball that would roll down the hill would be explosive.
It's not going to happen. It's going to quietly go away, isn't it?
Of course. And the third point is the person who's got the keys to the safe is in prison. And it makes me wonder, why did she go to prison without doing a deal with the Department of Justice to give everything they wanted? She'd be walking the streets and she'd be a free woman.
I think we all thought she was going to, that little black book. You know my theory, because I don't believe for a nanosecond that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide, because he's got away with it all his life. Why would you think he wouldn't beat this rap, given the people he knew and the hold he had on people? I do not accept that men like that ever give up. I don't accept it. I'm wondering whether she is genuinely worried for her own life, and she's keeping stum because she'd rather be in prison and alive. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, as you'll know, as a regular, but I think everyone's up to their necks in it here.
No, I think you're right. But you know something, and the point you made about Epstein, I don't believe he took his own life in jail. Absolutely not. And I think that clearly, if someone wanted to get to Ghislaine Maxwell in a jail, it's not going to be difficult. But I really, I think we have to thank the US government, Department of Justice, for releasing all of these documents.
Kind of got dragged out of them. Trump promised to do it, and it's taken more than a year.
It has, but you know, it's coming, and it's going to be the forever bearing fruit tree.
Oh, it certainly is. I don't think we've seen half of it yet. And it is fascinating how everything's been so focused, and not just here, but in America as well, on both Andrew and indeed Mandelson, when, of course, there's so much more that we know in terms of documents and terms of other very well-known men. But again, I do need to stress that being mentioned in the Epstein files doesn't mean you've actually committed any wrongdoing. Basically, anyone and everyone was in contact with this guy. Because, you know, why? Well, because he made damn sure that was how he worked. 12:35 is the time. Let's go to a quick break, and then we're going to be talking about, Keir Starmer coming back from his total humiliation in China. Is he facing humiliation in that by-election? And what's going to happen afterwards? This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. 12:38 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Benedict Spence is still with me. Benedict, before we go to our next guest, how do you think the Prime Minister did on his trip to China? Do you think we got lots out of it, and do you think we've really polished our image on the world stage?
He did tremendously well. Comrade Leader Starmer went there and boldly set out his vision for the future of socialism across the world, and the Chinese were very receptive of him because they respect him as a great leader of socialist workers.
And pig iron production is up 8,000% this year.
Now we're going to play the anthem, and we're all going to stand and salute, and I'm doing my best here, but no, come on, it wasn't even particularly good for PR purposes. He went. There's a couple of photographs of him looking very short next to a lot of Chinese soldiers who
found the tallest people
very tall.
in the country.
They went straight to Manchuria and went, which are the tallest amongst you, who are basically Russians here?
They literally do that stuff.
Yeah. They do, and we don't see it coming, and he just looks tiny. And there were people who took photographs with him at a restaurant. And that's about it.
Well done. I mean, he went to Japan to make it look like he was busy and it was all worldwide. But he got back at the weekend, and now he's faced, well, exactly the same woes he had before he left over this Gorton by-election and talk of a leadership challenge as well. Let's talk about all of this now with Labour councillor and commentator Sebastian Silek. Good afternoon to you, Sebastian.
Good afternoon. How are you, Julia?
Very well indeed. Always. Well, I'm still like, I'm delighted that January's finally over, as the Prime Minister no doubt is as well. But February's looking pretty grim too. It's still looking pretty grim for the Prime Minister. I mean, look, this was a disastrous PR-wise trip to China. He got pretty much nothing in return. Most of the investment he was talking about was British firms investing in China, for goodness sake. And he's come back, and the problems are just as bad as they were before he went away.
Yeah, look, I think calling that trip a humiliation, as you did before the break, going a little bit far, if I'm completely honest. We got a deal on whiskey, we got a deal on sanctions, we got a deal on visas, we got AstraZeneca investing into China. Pretty good for a day.
Was that worth giving away the embassy?
Really.
Was that worth giving away the embassy? By the way, those MPs who were sanctioned, they can't go to China anyway because it still wouldn't be safe for them. You could already get China. The people who are going to get visas would have been able to get one. Won't need visas now. Would have been able to got one anyway. I mean, the other stuff. I mean, this is a nonsense.
What's a nonsense? Sorry.
Which is, I mean, a tariff deal on whiskey. I mean, yes, that's great for those whiskey producers, but the Prime Minister took time. He missed a PMQs. He dashed off to be on the other side of the world for half the week, and that's what he got. He was humiliated. He didn't even get a private tour of the Forbidden City, for God's sake.
Look, Julia, I think if you want to criticise this government, there are other avenues I would go down. That was a very successful visit. He's doing exactly what Prime Ministers should be doing, which is going out there and striking deals with other countries. Sadly, it's the opposite of what the previous government did, which was close down our trading relationships with our nearest neighbours.
We didn't close. No, we didn't. No, we didn't. Most of our trade is still with the EU. When did we close it down?
Less than before Brexit, though, Julia. And
that's because everyone's trading less because those countries are so poor now.
Sorry, which countries are poor?
Oh, well, I mean, Germany was booming. Germany's no longer booming, but that's because they Brexited. Oh no, they're still in the EU.
Well, no, Poland is booming, Greece is booming. You're seeing a lot of growth across the EU.
I hate to tell you, those are not the key economies of the EU.
No, they're not, but they're the emerging ones. So it's important to have relationships with those.
So you accept that Germany and France, the other big economies, aren't booming? You accept that?
Oh, of course, you can read GDP numbers just as
but that's weird because you lot are constantly telling us that the reason we're not doing well is because we left the EU. Those countries are still the leading power players in the EU. They haven't left, and yet they're doing badly. How does that make sense?
Well, of course it makes sense. All economies are cyclical. Sometimes they'll be doing well and sometimes they'll be doing badly.
Oh, so ours has got nothing to do with
causation.
Brexit.
You want to ask yourself, why are economies doing badly? And if you cut yourself off from the rest of your continent economically, of course you're going to take...
We're not cut off. We're still trading
Julia, as we've said, we've covered the fact that trade has fallen between the UK
and why has trade... OK, small point that we had this lockdown thingamajig. Small point that we then had Ukraine war and we had huge increase in prices, which basically dulled everyone's economies. And the fact that countries like Germany are doing really bad economically, so they're not buying as much of our stuff.
So just to be perfectly clear here, are you saying that Brexit has had no negative impact economically whatsoever?
I don't think there's any way of knowing. No, I don't think. I think given that we Brexited in the middle of a lockdown, I'm not sure it's possible to tell which bits. There are plenty of benefits. Any negativity we've had as a result of governments, both Tory and Labour, mostly Tory, not actually trying to give us a proper Brexit and breaking free, deregulating and improving a lot, as opposed to what Keir Starmer wants to do, which is tie us to all the EU regulations, but without having a say on what those regulations are, which is the worst of both worlds.
So that's an interesting position, and it might have been valid in 2020 before we really could assess the damage. But as most economists will tell you, you can see what's bounced back after COVID. A lot of things have bounced back after COVID, and many things haven't. And so the dust is settling now, and you can make a real assessment of the damage that Brexit has done to the UK economy.
Okay,
that's really unfair on everybody who lives here and anybody who wants to see growth in the country.
Okay, yeah, that if you think that's the problem why we're not doing well in our economy, good luck with that. Take us back. Have a referendum. We won't vote to go back in, but if we did, I can assure you it would make zero difference to our economy. Can I just bring you something that you talk about bounce back? Someone who kept bouncing back over the years has always been Lord Mandelson over the years. As my colleague Benedict Spencer just pointed out, he's actually been appointed by and basically fired by 43% of all Labour Prime Ministers ever, 3 out of the 7. But he is out of a job. He's out of a job as of last year as our man in Washington. He then yesterday resigned from Labour Party membership. He still has a peerage, of course, so he doesn't sit in the House of Lords. Keir Starmer's just issued a statement saying he believes Lord Mandelson should not be a member of the House of Lords, and he's asked the Cabinet Secretary to urgently review all available information on contact between the former minister and Jeffrey Epstein. This is a statement issued by Downing Street on Keir Starmer's behalf. We've had Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader, saying that there needs to be a full investigation. This ultimately does come back to the Prime Minister and his Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney's judgment, does it not? Appointing a man who'd left 2 jobs previously because he was caught lying, who had a close friendship, a man he called his best pal, with a man who was well known at this point to be a paedophile and had a criminal conviction for a lot of that time for soliciting a 14-year-old for prostitution. Doesn't this tell us that Keir Starmer and indeed his Chief of Staff have terrible judgment?
I think what it tells us is that Peter Mandelson wasn't completely honest with the Prime Minister and with anybody else.
Shouldn't that have been priced
in? The process when he was trying to become the ambassador.
Shouldn't that have been priced in? He was a proven liar already. Shouldn't that have been priced in? That he's not going to tell us the truth. Aren't they supposed to do due diligence?
Julia, because if you start to do that with politicians, you don't end up with many left. I mean, you could make the same argument for Boris Johnson, who had a furnished record of lying before he even became an MP, and he rose to the very top. Should we not have I've
always had question marks, but there's a difference between he lied to his wife about his mistress and he lied to the Prime Minister about and lied to his mortgage company about a loan for his house.
Boris Johnson lied to the Queen.
What did he lie to the Queen about? Just help my memory.
It was around proroguing Parliament. It was the advice that he was given, which is a pretty serious offence.
Well, yeah, but then, the Labour Party and Keir Starmer lied to the public about accepting the results of a referendum, so swings and roundabouts, never. I don't think Prime Ministers, I don't think Ministers, I don't think MPs should lie to the public, but when they get caught, we're allowed to hold that against them. If someone keeps lying and keeps having to resign from jobs because they've lied, was it a good idea to appoint them to a job where they were representing us as the most senior diplomat in the world?
Well, with the benefit of hindsight, I can say it was a bad decision, and the Prime Minister agreed with me.
Didn't need hindsight.
Well, it did, because he wasn't, as you will know, entirely honest about his extent of his relationship with Epstein at the time of the vetting. If he had been, I'm incredibly confident he would never have been appointed.
Basic checks with MI5 would have established that this man, who'd been a European Commissioner, who'd been a government minister, who had lots of extensive ties with everybody, there's no sodding way that the security services didn't know who he was friends with and where he was spending time.
So are you suggesting there's been some kind of cover-up within MI5?
No, I'm pretty sure. I would be very surprised if Downing Street wasn't aware of everything and they appointed him anyway. That's what I think happened.
OK, well...
Of course, there is no way that someone is appointed to that job without being security vetted. You have to be security vetted to get a pass for the House of Commons, for goodness sake. He was security vetted. There's no way that... I mean, and we've had some question marks about that when he, last year and the year before, about whether or not, how we would have passed that vetting.
Yeah, I mean, look, we know as a matter of public record that he has said that he wasn't entirely honest. with those who were vetting him. We can make all sorts of guesses about what happened and develop our own theories, but the reality is that that whole process is a complete black box, and we will never know for sure.
Yeah, I just think when someone's already been sacked twice for lying, I think you could perhaps not be quite so trusting. At the end of the day,
on that basis, let me ask you about Nadine Zahawi then, because he's been reappointed now. He's walked into reform.
Well, he's not been reappointed as a minister. No, I think,
No,
and
I
was absolutely of the view that he should have been sacked when he was a government minister, 100%.
But has he then forfeited his right to continue a public life?
I'm not, well, put it this way, I'm not sure given his track record, and I like him personally, I'm not sure that I would take what he says as written. I would want to see proof, because you do forfeit your right to be treated as honest when you have not been honest previously. Let me ask you.
What about Suella Braverman then? Because she's also had to resign a couple of times because of dishonesty, and she's also.
Yeah, you say that's a those are very, very, very different issues.
I don't think they are.
I think they are.
I do. They've been covering things up. One was involving personal tax affairs. One was involving leaks within the Home Office.
I think those were very, very different.
Isn't reform making a big mistake by taking these people on board who are, by your definition, incredibly tarnished politicians?
I don't think they're tarnished in the same way.
Really?
I really don't. No, I don't think they're, because I don't think those are of equal morality.
So you don't think lying and dodging tax, tens of millions of tax?
No, Zahawi. No. I called for him to be sacked when that emerged. Got no
sure,
question
but now
about
he's
that.
gone on to reform, and your general argument
he hasn't been appointed. He hasn't been appointed to a government.
Must then disappear from public life. Or have I misunderstood you?
He hasn't been appointed to a government role.
No, but
and there's no question about him being appointed to a government role.
Reform. There was a massive press conference to welcome him. He shook hands with Nigel Farage.
But he hasn't been appointed to a government role. That's a completely. A government role is a completely different thing.
But don't you think it's a political misstep for?
It may well be. It may well be, but that's not the same as being appointed to a government role where your job is to keep state secrets, when you're a proven liar, when you're a diplomat.
Understood. Now, look, if Nadine Zahawi is ever appointed a cabinet member or a shadow
I'm not of the view that people who resign in those circumstances or sacked in those circumstances should be able to come back. I think at that point you have to say public life is no longer for me.
And will you denounce it then if either of them ever enter the shadow cabinet?
Hold me to it. I'm going to have to leave this now, but only because of time. I could keep doing this for another 20 minutes. And there's loads more I want to talk to you about, but I've got another guest waiting on the line. I'm going to have to leave it, but come back again soon. Sebastian Silek, Labour councillor and commentator. Gave all credit to him, gave as good as he got. I'm taking a quick break, and then we're going to be coming back and we're talking about why the countryside needs to be less white. You naughty, naughty white people going to the countryside, and frankly, you naughty, naughty people who are black or brown who are not going to the countryside. We're going to have to boss you in to make it better. Did you not read the rules? This is Talk.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCounts.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits. That's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beard, and I feel
Raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of this desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh, that was quite an exchange there with our Labour councillor Sebastian Selleck. I do think the other cases of other ministers are very, very different orders. Certainly with Suella Braverman, the reason why she lost 2 cabinet jobs. But there we are. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. Right now, let's talk about whether everyone is entitled to go or not to go to the countryside. Some people may choose a lovely weekend or a week's holiday in the countryside, say in the Cotswolds or in the Chilterns. Others may not. Has this got anything to do with people's skin colour? Because apparently, according to those folk who are apparently in charge of rural areas, it does. And officials in rural areas, including the Chilterns and the Cotswolds, have pledged to attract more minorities under plans drawn up by the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, that's DEFRA. This follows their government reports that have claimed that the countryside would become irrelevant in a multicultural society, as it was a white environment principally enjoyed by the white middle class. And National Landscapes, which basically protects areas of outstanding natural beauty, and their local councils have committed to diversity targets to attract more people of colour and indeed specifically more Muslims to certain areas. It's absolutely mad and bonkers, but let's talk about this with Tim Bonner. He's Chief Executive of the Countryside Alliance. Tim, good morning. Oh, sorry, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
I think this is terrible because we're both white. How dare we both be both white in a country that's 90% white, talking about it. I quite like the countryside, British countryside, absolutely stunning, you know, green rolling hills. Surely there aren't signs up saying no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. Remember those awful signs outside pubs and shops, but way back, 70 years ago. Surely there aren't signs telling people of colour you are not welcome here. So why do they need to encourage people to go to the countryside who just happen to have a darker skin colour than you or me?
Well, it's getting really silly, isn't it, Julia? And this is on a cycle now. We have these stories, we have these reports every few months. And actually, what's sad is that underneath this there is an issue. It's not a massive one, I don't think, but there is an issue in that if you run a business in the countryside, we want everyone to come to the countryside. We want it to be open, and if you fancy it, come on and crack on. What I do think is there is a certain amount of prejudice, but the prejudice isn't about people from ethnic minorities. The prejudice is from academics who love writing papers saying that people who live in the countryside are all backward and bigoted, and therefore they're horrible to anyone else who comes out there.
But also,
and it's all based on anecdote and nonsense. But that's the real problem.
No, but also because it is horribly white village. But the reality is, it's like BBC executives who think it was something like 45% of London, the capital city where I am right now, is now an ethnic minority, and so they think that's what the whole country looks like and B should look like, whereas actually that is simply not an accurate representation. But I mean, look, there are plenty of things that one could do. There are sports that attract more people of particular, not just skin colours, but particularly cultural background. We don't sit and go, well, there aren't enough white people playing in cricket in India. I mean, actually, most of the England cricket team are out there now, but it's really there aren't enough white men playing basketball at the highest level. It is absolutely fascinating that there should be this obsession about certain. Are there enough white people playing in reggae bands? I don't know, but it's just an obsession with colour. There is nothing that is stopping anyone of any background from going to the countryside, other than the fact that might not be something that they want to go and do on holiday. Maybe they prefer to go to a beach, whether they are white or black or brown or Muslim or Christian or atheist. They might prefer to go skiing. They might prefer to be sitting on a city break. But why? I just don't even begin to understand why anyone is even thinking about this.
And look, the countryside is very white, but largely we know that's because the pattern of immigration has been that most people from ethnic minorities have gone to cities and towns. Therefore, they're not in the countryside. There are actually, there was a big wave of immigration from Eastern Europe into the countryside, people working on farms.
Yeah.
If you go to somewhere like Spalding in Lincolnshire, where there's a huge Polish population, and they've been welcomed with open arms, and everyone else will be welcomed as well. But as I say, the reason, if you're worried about this, and I know you're struggling to get your head around it being a problem in the first place, but if you're struggling with this, why people from ethnic minorities aren't coming to the countryside, the fact that academics from Leicester University are telling them that everyone in the countryside is racist and they're going to chase them out with pitchforks is probably part of the reason people don't come.
Exactly. I wonder how many academics at Leicester University of different pigmentations. But again, most normal people don't get it. It seems to me only people who are talking about this are people who are racist because they're obsessed with. They're looking around going, oh, they've got a black face, they haven't. I can't imagine that being something I would even register or notice. Were I in London or were I, in the Cotswolds? It's utterly bizarre. Tim, thank you for talking sense. Chief Executive of the Countryside Alliance, Tim Bonner there. Benedict Spencer. I mean, the only solution for this is bussing people in. They did this in America. They bussed kids from black neighbourhoods to schools in white neighbourhoods and kids from white neighbourhoods into black neighbourhoods. We're going to have to be bussing people. I know you want to go on a holiday to the Caribbean. I know you'd rather go to the Costa del Sol, but you're black or brown, and therefore we're going to take you to the Lake District for your holidays, whether you like it or not.
Nice idea, but there aren't any bus routes that